the heart of creation stands the Sss-Rank Yggdrasil Labyrinth, a colossal world tree anchored at the center of the universe that serves as the foundation for all 9 worlds. This domain ranks among the 7 most difficult labyrinths in the world. All 7 domains remain uncharted ground, loaded with secret treasures. And after clearing an A-rank dungeon last month to earn SSS rank rights, the party now marches into the Yggdrasil Labyrinth. Rei belongs to an elite A-ranked squad called Gonkino Donghwa, where every single member is a seasoned professional. Dark magic runs through Fail, an ancient witch's bloodline flowing in her veins, even if calling her a witch is forbidden. Known as Sword Saint Himeno, this dual-blade master empowers her twin swords with lightning and wind elemental enhancements, mocking every foe as mere small fry. Holding the vanguard is Suglinsti, a towering, muscle-bound juggernaut whose colossal greatsword delivers bone-shattering, devastating blows. Suglinsti shouts that nothing beats the feel of steel-cleaving warm flesh barking at the party to burn the carcass. Leading the team is Loki Vigordor, a peerless genius in combat prowess, tactics, and magic. Bringing up the rear is their nervous white mage and party healer, Ray Dean Huel. Suglinsti demands to know why Ray is idling, ordering him to cast healing on Himeno's wounded leg immediately. Himeno brushes it off as a mere scratch, yet Suglinsti insists on playing it safe and barks for Ray once more. Carrying his heavy pack, Ray hurries over, kneels beside her injured leg, and channels his healing spell. Gasping for breath, Ray mutters a quick warning before collapsing flat against her leg. Furious and disgusted by his touch, Himeno storms off on her feet, fuming that this is the worst day of her life. Loki rushes over to check on Ray, offering a glass vial of liquid. Explaining that the draft restores stamina, Loki tilts the remedy back and pours it straight down Ray's throat. Ray apologizes to Loki for forcing him to waste such an expensive item. Fail watches in silence as Himeno sneers that Ray is pure dead weight, prompting Suglinsti to laugh and tell Loki that he goes far too easy on him. Furious at the mockery, Ray stews in silence, but Loki urges him to rest since a single heal drains his entire mana reserve. With mana reserves far below average, casting any spell empties his tank and leaves him paralyzed, making it impossible for this white mage to treat more than one person. It is an appalling flaw with 0 physical brawn to offset it, leaving his raw battle capabilities miles behind the rest of the party. Yet despite these glaring weaknesses, Loki still welcomed Ray into the party. Pushing himself up, Ray stares at his trembling hands, glad to have regained enough strength to walk. Loki checks if he can manage on foot, and Ray assures his leader that he is fine as he slowly hobbles behind them. Even through the insults, Ray feels genuinely grateful, convinced this party is the only home where he truly belongs. Himeno sighs with disdain as Suglinsti snaps that Ray only ever gets in their way. Loki rallies the team to descend, determined to make them the first party to conquer the depths of the Yggdrasil Labyrinth and claim its secret treasure. Confident after breezing through an A-rank dungeon, the group marches ahead, leaving a quiet Ray trailing behind. Hoping to avoid becoming deadweight, Ray resolves to pull his weight, unaware of the nightmare ahead. True horror strikes deep within the SSS rank dungeon on the 12533 floor, where shattered blades clatter against stone alongside frantic curses. Battered and gasping for air, the fighters reel from the realization that those beasts were at least S-rank monsters. Panting for air, Loki Vigordor admits these monsters are far deadlier than expected. Accustomed only to A-rank prey, the party discovers the gap to S-rank is night and day, making victory impossible. Himeno panics at this living nightmare, refusing to die in these depths and demanding to know how such lethal beasts appeared. Fearing his stressed comrades will lash out, Ray keeps completely quiet and does not utter a single word. Suglinsti urges a hasty retreat before the monsters track them down again, but Himeno points out their grim reality. Slumping down, Himeno snaps that walking back is out of the question after rushing blindly onto this floor. Before they could grasp the danger, they had already plunged past the point of no return, lacking the strength to fight their way out. Only a single emergency option remains on the table. Suglinsti asks if he means the relics recovered from the depths of the A-rank dungeon, which Himeno hopes will secure their escape. A teleportation stone can transport its user anywhere instantly, though its magic burns out forever after a single activation. Drawing a crystal from the container, Loki notes they possess only 5, one for each member, with each worth thousands of gold coins. Choosing survival over coin requires no hesitation, and Loki declares that the moment to activate them has arrived. Ray admires how Loki pushed their limits before choosing retreat, knowing a weaker leader would have fled on the spot. True to his status as the greatest prodigy since the founding of the Adventurers Guild, Loki Vigordor stands apart. Loki steps forward, looks down with cold eyes, and declares that Ray is officially expelled from the party. Stumbling back in disbelief, Ray trips over a stone and tumbles to the ground right at Loki's feet. Reeling from the announcement, Ray freezes in a daze, struggling to comprehend the concept of his banishment. Loki asks if the decree registered, and Ray confirms he heard it, desperately pleading to know why Loki casts him out. A jagged rock slams into Ray's cheek with brutal force, dropping him to his knees as he clutches his bleeding face, weighing more stones in his palm. Suglinski mocks Ray, asking if he truly needs the obvious spelled out for him. Himeno grinds her heel into Ray's hand, snapping that his pathetic stupidity grates on her nerves. Towering over him, Himeno accuses Ray of ogling her throughout every battle, denouncing him as revolting. Himeno snaps when Ray tries to speak, driving her boot straight into his face. Gasping on the floor, Ray protests that he only tracked their movements to rush in whenever someone took critical damage. Three teammates sneer down in contempt, yet Fail remains detached off to the side as Ray catches her eye and looks away. Loki points out that a level 3 white mage cannot support them against high-tier monsters, burning all mana on a single heal before collapsing. Conceding the harsh truth, Ray admits that his mana burns out at a punishing speed. Yet Ray compensated through relentless dedication, analyzing enemy weaknesses, researching dungeon layouts, preparing meals, and managing every camp chore. Loki scoffs, mocking Ray for failing to grasp the immense expectations placed upon this team. Destined to slay the demon lord threatening the world, the party cannot afford a white mage who guarantees their failure. Pointing an accusatory finger, Loki condemns Ray for lacking strength as he lies sprawled on the cold dirt. Staring at the ground, Ray wonders why Loki ever chose him if he was so weak, his memories drifting to childhood. Back when 11-year-old Ray was an abused slave, Loki reached out a warm hand to rescue the battered child. Loki wore a bright smile back then, convincing Ray that there was a meaningful purpose behind his selection. In a trembling voice, Ray asks Loki why he chose him in the first place. Desperate to preserve his place in the party, Ray clings to hope only for Loki to sneer at his blatant stupidity. Loki reveals there was no grand purpose. He merely needed a cheap servant capable of patching up wounds. As a broke E-rank adventurer, Loki would have bought anyone dirt cheap with white magic, shattering Ray's illusions. Reflecting on the past, Loki scoffs that he has tolerated such a useless liability for far too long. Spreading his arms wide, Loki boasts that as one of only 3 A-rank parties, they can recruit any top white mage they desire as Ray clenches his fist. Dread grips Ray as the horrifying reality sinks in. They intend to abandon him in the deep Yggdrasil labyrinth among ferocious monsters. Loki refuses to waste a precious teleportation stone on him, having planned this abandonment from the start. Overwhelmed by dread as Loki steps closer, Ray knows abandonment means certain death and turns to plead for mercy. Weeping in pure terror, Ray begs for a second chance to prove his worth, utterly terrified to die alone in the abyss. Mocking the plea for a chance, Loki challenges him to heal this wound as he drives a sword straight through Ray. Agonizing screams tear from Ray's throat as Loki taunts him to cure the fatal puncture or bleed out where he lies. Himeno smiles in sadistic delight, and Suglinski laughs, leaving Ray horrified as his punctured lungs fail to draw breath. Clutching the hilt embedded in his chest, Ray grips the steel tightly and pulls the bloody sword free as life slips away. Tossing it aside, Ray Dean Huel gasps for air and channels healing into his wounded flesh. Loki Vigrador watches in shock as radiant light wraps the wound, sealing it shut. Collapsing to the dirt, Ray Dean Huel pants heavily. Loki Vigrador notes the wound is fully closed, mocking that rapid recovery is the only talent his useless healer has left. Refusing to stay down, Ray Dean Huel resolves to rise to his feet, stunning the entire party with his defiance. Determined to prove his worth, Ray Dean Huel staggers up. Loki Vigrador admits shock that he can still move, and when Ray Dean Huel asks if this is enough, his leader pauses to consider it. With a cruel laugh, Loki Vigrador calls it a joke and asks if he truly expected acceptance, shoving Ray Dean Huel aside. Hitting the dirt, he hears them declare the magic stone too precious to waste on him, using it as an excuse to abandon him. Parting with a sneer, Loki Vigrador kicks the dagger right next to Ray Dean Huel. Loki Vigrador returns the knife he once gifted him, mocking his fear without a weapon. The others call him lucky to have it for survival, yet the girl warns he will spend the rest of his life here. As their cruel laughter fades through teleportation, Ray Dean Huel crawls toward the knife, gripping it in tears. Questioning why he endured such torment for so long, Ray Dean Huel vividly recalls the endless beatings he suffered. He suffered only to keep his place, yet it saved nothing. Stranded on the ground, Ray Dean Huel spots a massive monster towering before him. His paralyzed limbs refuse to obey as the beast begins to advance. Gasping for breath, Ray Dean Huel questions why he must endure such senseless agony. Reflecting on his tragic past, Ray Dean Huel remembers monsters slaughtering his family before he was caged as an enslaved servant. Loki Vigrador purchased him only for the party to vent their fury and beat him, leaving him to wonder if his life has any purpose. Hurled off the cliff edge, Ray Dean Huel plummets into the abyss, blood pouring from his lips. A mysterious voice calls Ray Dean Huel utterly pathetic just before he crashes into the water with a massive splash. Ray Dean Huel tries to place the familiar voice calling out to him repeatedly, demanding a response and leaving him thoroughly bewildered. Opening his eyes, Ray Dean Huel discovers a blonde girl with large eyes gazing down, remarking that he is finally awake. Peering through one eye, Ray Dean Huel questions her gender, prompting her to retort that her girlhood should be obvious. Bewildered by her presence in this abyss, Dean Huel stares until she snaps, asking if her beauty charmed him, to which he admits she is cute. Blushing, she asks if he is serious, boasting that she is adorable and welcoming more praise. Dean Huel clarifies his intent, demanding why a child is inside the dungeon and which floor they stand on, though she urges him to calm down. Though she refuses to explain her presence, she offers to reveal the exact floor they occupy. She reveals they rest on the 200th floor at the base of Yggdrasil Labyrinth, leaving Dean Huel paralyzed in shock. In disbelief, Dean Huel asks if they truly sit on the bottom floor of Yggdrasil Labyrinth, realizing escape is impossible. Kneeling in despair, Dean Huel rejects reality, but she asks if he wants to leave, noting he can escape because he acquired a secret treasure. Confused, Dean Huel asks what relic he could have gained, and she clarifies that she means the Tears of the World Tree. Asking if he senses the divine aura, she explains that he already bears the curse of Yggdrasil. Smiling, she calls his ruined left eye proof, and Dean Huel clutches his face to ask what the curse means. She explains that his magic circuit now links directly to the World Tree, granting him limitless magical energy. His survival hinges on mastering this divine gift, and if he unlocks its secrets, he will easily find a way to escape. Dean Huel stares in disbelief, questioning the reality of the curse of Yggdrasil and its promise of infinite power. When Dean Huel asks her identity, she names herself Norn. Repeating her name, Dean Huel searches his memory as Norn observes his confusion and prepares her next test. Recognizing his attire as that of a white mage, Norn challenges Dean Huel to prove it by casting healing. Dean Huel awkwardly confirms his ability, prompting Norn to question his hesitation as he clenches his fists in shame. He confesses that casting a single healing spell will drain his entire mana pool, leaving him utterly paralyzed. Stepping forward, Norn smacks him on the head and urges him to just attempt the spell until Dean Huel finally relents. Casting the healing spell, Dean Huel conjures radiant light, prompting Norn to ask how his body feels. Checking his hands, Dean Huel gasps in astonishment that he feels no fatigue whatsoever. Staring at his palm, Dean Huel wonders why his magical power has not disappeared. Laughing proudly, Norn tells him this is only the beginning, asking if he feels boundless magic surging within. This is the true energy of the World Tree, a reality Dean Huel repeats in awe. Norn repeats that his internal magic circuit is now bound directly to the World Tree. Normally, mana channels through the core of the magic circuit, a gateway that ordinary healing magic can never replenish. But when he washed ashore, the curse of Yggdrasil transferred his magic core from his left eye to the World Tree itself. Touching his covered eye, Dean Huel asks if drawing mana from the World Tree allows him infinite spellcasting. With a bright smile, Norn confirms that he can wield his boundless magical reserves without restriction. Dean Huel asks what triggered this bond with the World Tree. Norn asks if he truly desires the answer, and Dean Huel insists on knowing what transformed his own body. Prompted by her mention of the curse, Dean Huel follows Norn as she guides him toward a glowing spring. Guiding Dean Huel to the water, Norn explains she pulled him out after he swallowed the liquid during his fall, prompting him to ask if it is true. Smiling, Norn reveals the spring holds the Tears of the World Tree, a divine relic rumored to resurrect the dead, before continuing her explanation. She explains that the trunk he rested against is the World Tree that forms the labyrinth. Dean Huel realizes this is the fabled World Tree on the untouched lowest floor, holding the Tears of the World Tree that every adventurer seeks. He understands that the dungeon holds an infinite wellspring of magical power born from the World Tree. Having obtained this miraculous gift, he marvels at the true power of an Sss-Rank dungeon relic. Norn scoffs at calling her personal garden an Sss-Rank dungeon, prompting Dean Huel to grasp the true scale of her sanctuary and seek more answers. Dean Huel recalls how she withheld her reasons for staying here, even as she openly revealed their floor number. Turning to Norn, Dean Huel asks if she is alone, and after she confirms no other souls dwell here, he asks how she survived in isolation. Norn sighs softly, boasting that her strength far surpasses her youthful appearance. Doubting her claim, Dean Huel notes a 12-year-old child inside a lethal high-level dungeon makes no sense, prompting Norn to question his disbelief. When Norn claims she can effortlessly slay S-rank monsters, Dean Huel objects, knowing his former party stood no chance against such beasts, though her innocent presence makes it hard to believe. Dean Huel drops the matter, focused entirely on finding a way out of the abyss. Gazing upward in silence, Dean Huel remembers that reaching the surface demands defeating lethal S-rank monsters. Despite infinite mana, he is only a white mage without combat skills, staring at his palms in despair over what purpose awaits him if he escapes. Cast out by his comrades with no home and nothing left to his name, a bitter tear rolls down the cheek of Dean Huel. Wiping his tears, Dean Huel considers staying here since he has nothing left in the world. Dean Huel reflects that spending his days in this dungeon dungeon until death might be the most peaceful life he could ever hope for. Clenching his fist, Raydeen Huel accepts he can no longer save anyone, opening his mouth as Norn watches with intrigue. Touching his cheek, Raydeen Huel asks to live here, and though Norn agrees at first, shock strikes her as she realizes his true intent. When Raydeen Huel confirms he wishes to remain, Norn asks if he is serious after claiming he wanted to escape. Gripping his dagger, Raydeen Huel apologizes for changing his mind and asks to live here, inquiring about food as Norn teases his fickle choices before explaining. Learning that food is unnecessary down here, Raydeen Huel asks for clarification in shock. The mana of the world tree sustains his body without food, rapidly closing minor wounds and leaving him in a state approaching true immortality. Staring at his palms in awe, Raydeen Huel asks about immortality, but Norn clarifies that decapitation will still kill him instantly. Norn explains she had him cast healing only to sense the mana, since his flesh had already closed, adding that staying will teach him everything, bluntly calling him a weakling fit only for monster food. Norn warns that roaming beasts enter this sanctuary, forcing him to grow stronger to survive. Finding no safe haven here makes sense, so Raydeen Huel steals his resolve, and Norn gladly offers to drill him in the basics. Unaware of Norn's full power, Raydeen Huel knows he must become formidable enough never to drag anyone down, vowing he will never repeat past failures. 3 years later, on the dangerous 180 floor, an ominous rumble echoes through the cavern beneath Raydeen Huel. Gripping his blade, Raydeen Huel scans the cavern right as violent fissures fracture the stone under his boots. A colossal serpent erupts from the shattered earth, sending Raydeen Huel leaping high into the air to face the massive beast. Honed like a deadly blade, the serpent's tail lashes out to impale Raydeen Huel in midair. With the deadly tail closing in, Raydeen Huel concentrates his mana to unleash a fierce counterattack on the beast, shrieking in agony as its severed tail crashes down. The monster becomes a ramp for Raydeen Huel to charge up its spine. Landing before its face, Raydeen Huel plunges his sword into the forehead, offering a quiet apology to the beast. Radiance engulfs the embedded steel, unleashing a massive shockwave that obliterates the serpent entirely. As the serpent crumbles to dust, Raydeen Huel lands firmly on his feet, staring at his hands in awe before clenching his fist in triumph. Exclaiming to Norn that he won,
Raydeen Huel hears her rejoice.
Remarking that he is transformed after slaying the 180 floored Shadow Viper, channeling the magic of Yggdrasil Labyrinth to reinforce his flesh and discharge mana through the blade. Raydeen Huel earns Norn's praise for his refined control. Leaping over to Raydeen Huel, Norn praises his astonishing growth compared to the helpless novice who started training here 3 years ago. Shuddering at those memories, Raydeen Huel listens as Norn playfully reminds him how even tiny monsters used to kill him repeatedly. Remembering that tiny Ark Rabbit was an S-rank monster, Raydeen Huel knows that without Tears of the World Tree, he would have perished before training. Limitless healing fueled by Yggdrasil Labyrinth gave Raydeen Huel a semi-immortal body to experiment repeatedly, building combat experience and perfecting his precision. Boosting his healing efficiency allowed Raydeen Huel to restore his lost eye whenever switching the magic circuit, impressing Norn with his mastery under her guidance. Having expected him to need a full century to attain such strength, Norn marvels that he took a mere 3 years, calling him a true monster. Deflecting the praise, Raydeen Huel credits her exceptional guidance, though Norn urges him not to be modest. A chilling whisper cuts through the air, claiming Raydeen Huel is still weak and startling him. Whirling around to find empty space, Raydeen Huel looks unsettled, confirming Norn's suspicion that he saw another strange illusion. Ever since arriving in this place, Raydeen Huel has repeatedly caught glimpses of a miniature version of himself. Norn warned Raydeen Huel that bonding with Yggdrasil Labyrinth draws life toward its core, causing spectral forms to pull on his existence. Every time Raydeen Huel stands on the brink of death, that spectral miniature figure reappears. Norn suggests that the mana drawn from Yggdrasil Labyrinth carries the accumulated memories and lingering thoughts of the dead. Hearing her warning not to let them swallow his mind, Raydeen Huel agrees. Sparring in hand-to-hand combat, Norn playfully praises Raydeen Huel and asks if he misses the surface world, but he smiles and shakes his head. Launching a swift high kick, Raydeen Huel watches Norn evade into the air, remarking on how 3 whole years have flown by since they met. Surviving Norn's brutal training made the years blur together, forging him into a fighter capable of keeping pace with someone who crushes Sss-Rank monsters. Enduring countless brushes with death finally forged Raydeen Huel into a survivor, prompting him to seize the opening and strike at Norn. Getting distracted for a single fraction of a second earns Raydeen Huel a sharp strike from Norn, crashing to the ground from the hit. Raydeen Huel clutches his sore jaw as Norn lands and scolds his lack of focus. Standing over him, Norn teases that he remains a naive boy despite his growth, though Raydeen Huel knows any warrior would lose focus there. Resting on the grass beside Norn beneath the night sky, Raydeen Huel listens as she remarks on the brilliant clarity of the stars. stairs, questioning if she was always alone down here. Ray Dean Huel hears Norn explain that hardly anyone ever enters this deep into the abyss. Ray Dean Huel agrees, noting Shadow Viper outclasses surface beasts, facing an Sss-Rank monster for the first time, brings certain death, costing him many lives before victory. Asking Norn if she ever longs to leave, Ray Dean Huel is stunned when she confesses that departing the dungeon is impossible. Though powerful enough to depart, Norn admits that quiet comfort is the only thing keeping her here. Shattering Ray Dean Huel's assumptions, expressing his understanding, Ray Dean Huel watches Norn sit down with a wistful smile, admitting she still longs to witness the surface world. Prompted by Norn to recall if any unfinished business awaits him on the outside, Ray Dean Huel searches his memories for what was left behind. Harboring no desire to return to Gunkino Donghua with his new strength, Ray Dean Huel feels only a faint, bitter irritation toward his former party. Questioning his past despair, Ray Dean Huel listens as Norn asks if there is someone special waiting for him beyond the labyrinth walls. Searching his thoughts, Ray Dean Huel is startled when the image of a forgotten girl surfaces. Turning to a surprised Norn, Ray Dean Huel announces that he has an unfulfilled promise and vows to escape to the surface. Remembering Ninimoa, a red-haired girl with a beauty mark near her eye, Ray Dean Huel recalls their shared enslavement inside Serpent Merchant's mansion before Gunkino Donghua. Found by their similar age, Ray Dean Huel stayed by Ninimoa's side throughout their time in captivity. Whenever cruel slavers unleashed violence to vent frustration, she stepped in like an older sister to protect Ray Dean Huel. Shielding him from every blow, she would stand before Ray Dean Huel with arms spread wide. Whenever a tearful Ray Dean Huel asked if she was hurt, her gentle answer never changed. Flashing a radiant smile, Ninimoa promised she would always protect him whenever danger struck. Asking him to rescue her if peril ever struck, Ray Dean Huel had felt powerless as a doomed slave. Deeply moved by her selfless warmth, Ray Dean Huel carried that unfulfilled promise through his days as a slave and his time as an adventurer. Now Ray Dean Huel finally holds the strength to fulfill that long-buried childhood vow. Resolved to reunite with Ninimoa and rescue her using the magic of Yggdrasil Labyrinth, Ray Dean Huel prepares for his return. 5 months pass as Ray Dean Huel advances toward the exit of Yggdrasil Labyrinth alongside Norn. Marching toward Ninimoa, Ray Dean Huel halts in his cloak and gazes ahead. Noticing his pause, Norn answers Ray Dean Huel as he inquires about their current floor in this familiar terrain. Confirming they stand on the 125th floor, Norn hears Ray Dean Huel lament that despite Yggdrasil Labyrinth replenishing his stamina, mental fatigue weighs heavily on him. Reminding him that their ascent takes 2 years, Norn notes how 5 months of relentless marching forced Ray Dean Huel to spearhead nearly every battle. Treating his trials as vital training, Norn refrains from combat and enjoys watching his fierce struggles, only stepping in when mortal peril threatens his life. Laughing at how monster slime drenched him on the 160th floor, Norn shrugs off Ray Dean Huel's complaint that she should have intervened instead of mocking him. Norn counters that constant rescues defeat the purpose of training, teasing that his newfound strength earns him a little mockery. Recalling his frantic struggle to wash monster saliva from his tunic, she chuckles, baffled by how flustered Ray Dean Huel became once he caught her watching him scrub. Before Ray Dean Huel can retort, Norn gazes ahead and spots a discarded bag resting on the ground. Hoping for fresh clothes to replace his blood-soaked rags before reaching the surface, Ray Dean Huel knows stained hair requires time to regrow, but fabric can be swapped. Lifting the pack, Norn recognizes her own bag, and Ray Dean Huel marvels at their unexpected luck. Recognizing this exact sight from before his party betrayed him, Ray Dean Huel is cut short as a monstrous roar pierces the cavern. Inspecting an empty jar, Norn scolds Ray Dean Huel for packing no spare garments, chiding him for underestimating Yggdrasil Labyrinth's harsh trials. Rendered speechless by her scolding, Ray Dean Huel turns to see a menacing silhouette emerging from the shadows, catching him off guard. Recognizing the beast from their previous encounter, Ray Dean Huel confirms to Norn that they crossed paths before, clenching his fist with lethal intent. Drawing his blade, Ray Dean Huel charges directly at the beast, declaring that he is no longer the helpless victim who fell before it in the past. Landing after a shallow slash against the giant turtle, Ray Dean Huel notes its formidable armor surpasses even the deadly Shadow Viper in raw defense. Ray Dean Huel notices the turtle's invulnerable defense exists only upon its heavy shell. Gripping the turtle with bare hands, Ray Dean Huel draws a breath and heaves the colossal beast aloft. Slamming the overturned turtle onto its back, Ray Dean Huel raises his blade to target its exposed underbelly. Decapitating the beast in a flash of steel, Ray Dean Huel sighs and asks Norn to rate his victory, baffled by her stunned silence, urging him to seek trustworthy comrades once he returns to the surface. Norn explains that his reckless nature demands loyal allies by his side, doubting his ability to form bonds. Ray Dean Huel reluctantly nods as Norn offers an encouraging gesture, insisting he will succeed if he tries. Norn chuckles at Ray Dean Huel's doubt, reminding him that no one is meant to live alone. Norn gently reminds Ray Dean Huel that a long life awaits him, urging him to find comrades to share laughter with once she is gone. Ray Dean Huel begs her not to speak of grim omens, leaving the two of them staring at each other in solemn silence. Clenching his fist, he promises to try his best, earning a warm smile from Norn as she playfully praises him as a good boy. Though he protests that she acts childish, Norn insists he is the kid, cheerfully waving her arms and laughing out loud. Flashing a smile, Norn announces it is time to move on, beckoning him to follow her down the path. Resolving to introduce any future companions to Norn, especially his beloved Ninimoa, Ray Dean Huel vows to return here once his business outside ends. A strange bird glides through the skies of Nornland as they leap down together to discover glowing, beautiful crystals. Perched high on a tree branch above Ray Dean Huel, Norn loses her footing when the wood snaps, sending her tumbling down. Flustered by her embarrassing tumble, Norn furiously chases Ray Dean Huel around until they eventually settle beside a cozy campfire. Approaching a radiant archway alongside Ray Dean Huel, Norn points out the long-awaited exit. Ray Dean Huel remarks that they have finally arrived, and Norn nods in gentle agreement. Declaring her duty finished, Norn warns him to remain careful outside despite his immortal body, then urges the silent traveler to step forward. Looking back, he asks Norn if it is true that she cannot accompany him outside. Norn explains that as a skilled white mage, he already knows the truth. Her original body perished long ago, formed now only from dungeon aura. Existing purely as a construct of magical energy, stepping outside would cause her entire form to dissolve. At this parting of ways, Ray Dean Huel apologizes for making her voice such painful truths. Norn urges him not to look so mournful, or she will feel like a villain, laughing warmly when Ray Dean Huel promises never to do it again. She asks him to visit her from time to time, so that she will not grow lonely in the deep labyrinth. Surprised by her request, Ray Dean Huel promises never to leave her lonely, swearing to return to the haven he came to love. Sealing their pact, Norn playfully welcomes him to bring a girl next time, catching Ray Dean Huel off guard after his pledge to bring friends. Norn reminds him that beyond reuniting with his cherished friend, he must also save her life. Ray Dean Huel promises to try, bids farewell, and departs. Smiling warmly, Norn tells him to take care of himself as Ray Dean Huel steps into the daylight and waves one last goodbye. Having spent 3 years on the bottom floor and 2 above, 5 full years have passed since Ray Dean Huel saw the outside world, sparking deep anxiety. Surging anticipation overtakes his dread as Ray Dean Huel steps outside, spotting a distant settlement across the horizon. Tears well in his eyes, gazing up at the authentic open sky, his liberated body rejoicing until an unsettling noise breaks the stillness. Watching the gateway vanish into thin air, Ray Dean Huel realizes returning inside will require locating the true main entrance. Silently thanking Norn, Ray Dean Huel slaps his cheeks to refocus, planning to reach a settlement, sell dungeon loot for coin, and buy clean clothes. Catching a foul stench in the breeze, Ray Dean Huel realizes the rank odor does not originate from himself. Recognizing the scent of gore and beasts, Ray Dean Huel recoils as a severed man crashes nearby, exposing a monstrous drake ahead. The draconic fiend grunts that his orders demand devouring every single human he can find. One of the 4 deadly demons commanding under the Demon Lord ordered his fiends to butcher the imperial capital, demanding total strength. Demon forces mobilize quickly to prepare their assault on the capital. In brutal raids, rampaging demons ambush travelers and merchants to plunder cargo. Slaughtering and consuming their captives over and over, the fiends still hunger for more bloodshed. Lacking sufficient provisions to conquer the capital, they slaughter more victims to prove demon superiority. Spying a traveling carriage from high in the trees, a demon prepares to butcher the riders as wolf-like beasts emerge behind him. Howling with cruel amusement, the beast promises a feast, reducing the carriage to splinters and slaughtering all horses and guards. A lone blonde swordsman grips his blade, panting heavily with no doubt left about his grim fate. Wielding a giant battle axe and brown horn, the killer is the V-ranked hunter Vegan. Grinning wide, Vegan boasts that his infamy has spread far and wide among humans. Inspecting the loot, he praises Company Drave for outfitting the convoy with top-tier enchanted gear. Vegan shatters the remaining wagon with a brutal swing, sending a terrified girl tumbling out with a shriek. Bound in chains and shivering in fear, the captive earns a sinister nod from Vegan. Catching a curious detail, Vegan notices that these 3 wagons were guarded not by mere servants, but by holy knights, the lone swordsman and his slain partner. Musing that repeated raids forced merchants to hire elite escorts, Vegan watches the terrified knight flee and taunts his cowardice. Panicking, the knight knows he stands no chance against a brute capable of cleaving plate armor in one blow. Raising his Greetax, Vegan mocks this royal unit sanctioned by the king as the desperate soldier scrambles to report back to command. Taunting the runner for daring to turn his back, Vegan instantly unleashes a devastating axe strike. Carving through the knight's torso, Vegan drops him limp into the dirt as fresh crimson drips from the heavy Greetax. Sneering at the corpses, the brute scoffs that holy knights look flashy but crumble like pathetic weaklings, turning to seek more prey. As the captive weeps, Vegan sneers that men taste awful, leaving the corpses for his demonic hounds. Tracing a claw across her cheek, the beast purrs that fear makes her far more appetizing. Praising her pretty eyes, Vegan vows to keep her as a pet before butchering her, ignoring her desperate pleas for help. Gazing at her sheer terror, the monster purrs that her panic looks delightfully adorable. Gripping her chin, Vegan promises twisted amusement, relishing how she will spend every waking moment dreading slaughter. He boasts how all previous victims broke completely, groveling and performing any humiliating act to beg for their lives. Vegan muses that humans are amusing creatures, always willing to do anything just to stay alive. Squeezing her face, he revels in the exquisite despair of breaking someone who has been utterly betrayed. Laughing off her desperate pleas, Vegan vows to torment his new plaything until she finally begs for the sweet release of death. Clad in tattered rags, Ray Dean Hewell steps out and cheerfully bids them a good day. Scratching his head, Ray Dean Hewell apologizes for interrupting and admits that he got lost. Asking for directions to the nearest town, Ray Dean Hewell meets a blunt refusal from Vegan, who reels inwardly over how the stranger sneaked up undetected. Beneath those ragged clothes reeking of ancient monster blood, Vegan senses this newcomer is far from a normal wanderer. The captive girl screams for Ray Dean Hewell to flee before he gets slaughtered, warning that the beast is hunting her and he must save himself. As Ray Dean Hewell calmly nods, the demon notes his detached aura and resolves to slaughter him so no witnesses escape alive. Plotting a sadistic ambush, the demon decides to feign mercy, sever his legs from behind, and slowly butcher the youth before the captive's eyes. Licking his fangs, the beast shivers with excitement, imagining her broken despair when her would-be savior gets butchered. Feigning mercy, the fiend offers to spare his life if he abandons the captive, daring Ray Dean Hewell to choose rescue or flight. Vegan eagerly anticipates a face twisted by agonizing dilemma, stunned when Ray Dean Hewell casually agrees to abandon her and leave. Relishing the captive's despair, the monster lunges forward to butcher the departing traveler. Desperate, the captive screams a frantic warning about the ambush, but the monster snarls that it is already too late. Striking from behind, Vegan cleaves Ray Dean Hewell into severed pieces as he walks away. Horrified by the brutal butchery, the girl collapses into uncontrollable sobs of sheer despair. Glee washes over the demon as he drinks in her agony, savoring the precise broken reaction he craved. Stepping up to the corpse, the beast leans in to admire the face of Ray Dean Hewell contorted in agony. Without warning, Vegan's head is cleanly severed and vanishes from his shoulders. Sheer panic grips the demon as his world turns upside down, horrified to find Ray Dean Hewell applying healing magic to his severed neck, reattached to his shoulders. Vegan clutches his head in disbelief as Ray Dean Hewell calmly asks if it hurt, baffling the fiend who severed his legs. Standing firmly on two intact legs, Ray Dean Hewell leaves the demon shrieking in utter confusion over how his severed limbs were restored. Smiling calmly, Ray Dean Hewell explains that he merely decapitated him with a knife and reattached it with healing magic. Vegan recoils in sheer disbelief at the impossible recovery. Magic, this overwhelming, could never be simple healing. Such power defies reality, feeling more like a terrifying illusion. Unfathomable power radiates from the white mage. Ray is an absolute threat, and Vegan must flee now or face certain death. Ray calmly asks what is wrong. Survival instincts scream that the white mage spells pure death, yet the demon's paralyzed legs refuse to budge. His orders echo clearly: devour every human without mercy. Demons tolerate no weakness, demanding only ruthless power. Fleeing now means execution at the hands of the four deadly demons, desperation driving him. Vegan swings his weapon with murderous fury, bellowing at Ray not to mock him as the white mage stands motionless. He roars that a proud human hunter cannot be slain by a mere brat. Pride surges through him. After crushing 3 trees and slaying capital holy knights, he remains the supreme demon Vegan. A single flash from Ray severs the brute's arm, sending it flying across the grass. Ray asks if he finally understands who the weaker prey is. Clutching his bleeding stump in terror, the beast receives mercy, but Ray warns that this reprieve is his only chance. Vegan once mocked others, believing the strong hunt and the weak perish, yet his twisted arrogance completely shattered against true power. Cold words seal the warning. If Ray ever sees his face again, death is guaranteed. The demon finally grasps that he has become the prey. With the demon gone, Ray approaches the trembling girl and sits beside her, checking her condition to ensure she is unharmed. Ray manages only an awkward greeting before the girl breaks the silence. Introducing herself as Liana, she hesitantly admits she is a servant and expresses deep gratitude for her rescue. Her confession catches the white mage off guard as Liana grabs his leg, pleading with him to disregard her words, leaving him startled by the touch. Staring down at his limbs in disbelief, Liana asks if his legs were truly severed moments ago, stunned that every horrific wound has vanished, marveling that she worries about others despite her own trauma. Ray decides to speak truthfully, revealing that he is a white mage gifted with healing. Gasping in astonishment, she realizes he restored his own severed legs purely through healing magic, regenerating what had been completely lost. Resting a hand on her chin, Liana ponders how a white mage this extraordinary could exist without anyone in the realm ever hearing his name. An awkward expression crosses Ray's face as he reflects on 5 years of grueling training, acknowledging that what feels like simple reflex to him is extraordinary. Eager to change the subject, Ray asks Liana what she intends to do next. Casting her eyes down, she admits in quiet sorrow that she has no plan, stirring deep sympathy in Ray. Words fail the white mage as emotions stir in his heart. Memories of a cherished girl from his past resurface as Liana reminds him of those distant days. He recalls how in his weakest days, a brave girl stood before him with outstretched arms to protect him, never wavering in her support. Liana asks if he is all right, prompting Ray to resolve that he cannot abandon a 12-year-old girl to a harsh and aimless fate. Visions of Ninimoa fill his thoughts once more, leaving Ray to wonder what might have changed had she been here today. Smiling gently, Ray explains that he is seeking his own path toward the imperial capital, catching Liana by surprise as she listens with rapt interest. Extending a hand toward the young servant, he offers an open invitation. He invites her along to find fresh opportunities in the imperial capital. Liana gazes at him in wide-eyed astonishment, prompting Ray to think of Ninimoa. Longing to be someone who protects others, Ray asks if she likes the proposal, confident that his strength now makes anything possible. Reunion remains far away, yet elsewhere in the shadows, eerie footsteps echo through the cold corridors of a sinister laboratory. A collapsed figure lies on the stone floor before a shadowy figure in black and a terrified girl. Drawing his final breath, the demon collapses, another failed experiment. The mysterious experimenter remarks that this method failed to stabilize, unbothered because plenty of test subjects remain. That captive girl is Ninimoa grown up, and chillingly her turn has arrived. Twin blades remain thrust into the bloodied soil. Holding his arms with a quiet sigh, Ray settles on his decision. Rising to his feet, Ray urges the girl to cover as much ground as possible before nightfall. Dressed in clean travel clothes from the carriage, Ray leaves behind a dungeon soulstone as fair payment, refusing to enter the imperial capital dressed in rags. Soft footsteps pause as Liana calls out directly to Ray by name. Surprised by her tone, Ray listens as she brings up their previous discussion. Looking flustered, Liana apologizes and admits she cannot accompany him. Caught off guard, Ray asks why she would turn down his offer. Clutching her cloak to her chest, she fears that traveling together might draw another attack from Vegan. Ray questions her in surprise, asking if she means that same demon Vegan. Recalling the clash, Ray knows that the terror he burned into the demon will prevent it from daring to attack anyone again anytime soon. Shrugging off the worry, he assures her that dealing with Vegan again would be simple. Liana gasps in surprise, prompting Ray to hastily brush off his comments so she does not dwell on the danger. Insisting that she has no reason to fret, he tells Liana she is free to live an ordinary life, yet she firmly disagrees. Though her temporary contract holder died, she reveals a lingering mark upon her wrist as Ray inspects her arm in surprise. Liana explains that as long as this mark exists, she remains bound as property and can never truly be free. Ray realizes that funneling mana into another person binds their will to obey absolute orders, functioning essentially as a magical curse. Gripping his own wrist, he regrets not realizing this reality sooner. Pulling her cape tight, Liana laments that an ownerless servant of unknown origin cannot find a buyer, leaving masters unwilling to shoulder liability for an uncontrollable thrall. Outcasts meet grim fates, devoured by beasts, exploited, or dead by suicide. Ray remembers how Liana screamed for him to run and save himself in battle. Realizing she prioritized his life over her own, Ray understands her refusal stems purely from fear of placing him in greater danger. Convinced that Ninimoa would never abandon someone in need, Ray knows extending that exact same protective hand to Liana is the right path forward. Turning to the girl, Ray gently asks if she objects. Liana gazes back in suspense. Smiling warmly, he asks if she would be willing to form a contract with him. Wide-eyed and flustered, Liana protests that without her deceased master, no official transfer can occur, warning that Ray could face harsh penalties. Extending his hand, the white mage reassures her that he knows the risks and urges her not to fear. Channeling mana, Ray reveals the same mark upon his own wrist. Stunned by the glowing crest, Liana asks if he truly bears a mark of subordination. Touching the brand, Ray admits he hates the sight of it, explaining he seals it with medicinal treatments. Wrapping the bandages tight, he notes the mark resurfaces whenever they are removed, leaving Liana stunned by the realization that Ray is not truly free either. Securing the cloth, Ray mentions he was cast aside long ago, urging the girl not to dwell on his past. Liana struggles to find her voice, but before she can speak, Ray detects detects sudden danger approaching. Shielding the terrified girl with his body, Ray deflects a vicious ambush from a beast leaping from the shadows. Beside the tree, ominous rustling echoes as creatures close in from the woods. Glancing at the fallen monster, Ray knows more are coming. This is only the start. 5 wolf-like monsters emerge, snarling with bared fangs. Ray realizes Vegan lured them here. Surprised, so many beasts still prowl the area. Beasts growl in unison, coiled to strike as tension spikes. Dropping into a battle stance, Ray orders Liana to stay behind him. As the pack lunges forward, Ray channels dense mana into his foot. Unleashing the blast in an instant, he triggers an explosion of shattered stone erupting from the earth. The shockwave crushes several beasts instantly. Leaping atop a jagged boulder, Ray fixes the remaining beast with cold resolve, declaring that not a single one will pass. Leaping from the ledge, Ray Dean Huel strikes the monsters as Liana watches behind the rocks. Astonishment grips Liana, realizing this white mage is far from any ordinary healer. Glancing around, she spots a sword lying nearby. Sword in hand, Ray Dean Huel looks at his fallen foe, yet countless monsters still remain. A beast charges his back, prompting Ray Dean Huel to unleash the terror he dealt to Vegan, but an unexpected strike cuts in. Stepping in at the last second, Liana cuts the monster down and saves him. Ray Dean Huel freezes in shock as Liana stands, amazed by her own bravery, declaring she did it as she grips her sword tighter. Sweat drips down her face before she pauses, resolved to fight at the side of Ray Dean Huel. Fearing for her life, he rushes over, bewildered by her reckless choice to join the fight. Facing the beast, Liana insists that Ray Dean Huel has no reason to worry. Though trained in weapon combat, this encounter marks her first real battle. Her combat training catches him off guard, proving the past 5 years brought vast changes if household subordinates are now schooled in deadly warfare. Growling wolf-like monsters advance, one lunging directly at a frightened Liana until a violent crack resounds. Dashing forward, Ray Dean Huel shields her in his arms and parries the beast away. Surrounded by dozens of enraged beasts, he realizes this massive pack poses far too great a hazard for Liana. Fixing them with a cold gaze, Ray Dean Huel lets his aura wash over them. Eerie noises echo across the clearing, freezing the beasts solid beneath a surge of magic. Manifesting behind the pair, a mystical silhouette akin to the spirits of the dead suffocates the clearing in chilling, suffocating tension. Terrified by this unfathomable presence, the pack roars in panic and scatters into the woods to escape. Exhaling in relief as silence returns, Ray Dean Huel softly tells Liana that the danger has passed. Noticing her blush and lingering fright, Ray Dean Huel steps back with an apology, prompting Liana to murmur that all is well. Checking whether she took any wounds, he receives gratitude from Liana alongside her promise that she is unharmed. When she casts her gaze downward, Ray Dean Huel ponders the hidden trouble weighing on her mind. Remembering her reckless courage against the beasts, he realizes she genuinely worries she has become an unwanted burden. Resolved to give her a reason to stay, Ray Dean Huel introduces the idea of a contract with a candid confession. Brushing his hair in awkward hesitation, Ray Dean Huel claims his memories from the past years have vanished. Stunned by his claim, Liana asks whether his lost memories are really true. The lie spares her the convoluted reality, since explaining his years trapped in a dungeon would only overwhelm her. Spreading his arms casually, Ray Dean Huel asks Liana to teach him the modern world, as her knowledge of recent history far exceeds his own blank slate. Thoughts of Ninimoa return to him, demanding fresh knowledge of what the world went through over the past 5 years to find her. Placing a hand against his chest, Ray Dean Huel offers steadfast protection and pay for her knowledge, leaving Liana amazed by his immense kindness. Meeting her gaze with a smile, Ray Dean Huel insists he simply needs her help. Wide-eyed, Liana asks in disbelief that anyone could genuinely need her. A calm, confident confirmation from Ray Dean Huel makes Liana bow her head to process the surging emotion. Fidgeting with her fingers, Liana admits she owes him her life, happily accepting the terms of their new contract. Declaring the contract complete, Ray Dean Huel offers his thanks, to which Liana respectfully addresses him as Lord. Ray Dean Huel casts magic to hide the mark on her hand. Kneeling by the tree, Ray Dean Huel seals the pact, but when Liana pledges blind obedience to his orders, he waves his hands in frantic protest over the misunderstanding. Mastery was never the goal, as Ray Dean Huel outlines 2 distinct tactical benefits granted by this mutual contract. The bond tracks her position for immediate rescue and channels his aura directly into Liana to bolster her resilience, maximizing her survival and making her protection effortless. Shaking hands, Ray Dean Huel begins to speak before she cuts in, requesting to be addressed simply as Liana. Smiling warmly, Ray Dean Huel asks to be called by his plain name and proposes teamwork, though Liana still responds with formal honorifics. Quick to correct the misunderstanding, Ray Dean Huel asks her to drop excessive titles, leaving Liana flustered and puzzled. Dusk settles over the woods, prompting Ray Dean Huel to pitch camp despite protests from Liana, warning that pushing through exhaustion will only cripple her legs on the road. Troubled by nocturnal threats, Liana mentions the terrifying beasts lurking after dark, and apologizes for stalling the journey. A system window unveils events from months earlier inside Valiant Castle in the Imperial capital. Loki Vigrador, leader of Gunkino Dongwa, notes 6 years have passed since their grand promotion to A rank here. Walking the castle corridors, Loki Vigrador relishes access to halls forbidden to commoners outside rare royal honors. Silence overtakes Loki Vigrador as floodgates of past memories open. Loki Vigrador remembers the phrase, "God is a man." Surrounded by guards in the throne room, the king looks down on a kneeling subject, declaring demons cannot defile lands where gods reside. Wearing an eye patch, the monarch orders the demon lord destroyed, proclaiming their divine justice supreme. Royal commands send the hero forward to fulfill destiny. Observed closely by Loki Vigrador from back in the crowd. Kneeling beside 3 rival leaders, Loki Vigrador accepts an S-rank certificate from the king, who praises Gunkino Dongwa for conquering A-rank dungeons and serving the empire. 4 promoted commanders assemble: a scarred bald warrior, a woman with a mouth bandage, a masked fighter, and Loki Vigrador. Envious eyes glare at him, since only Gunkino Dongwa attained S-rank status. Chuckling under his breath, Loki Vigrador savors every jealous look from his rivals. Thanking the monarch, Loki Vigrador vows to remain the bedrock of the empire in conquering the demon lord. Expressing high expectations, the king grants dismissal, met with united compliance from all 4 leaders. Relief washes over the leader of Gunkino Dongwa as he exits the hall, having finally secured his S-rank title. Climbing to S-rank required clearing 2 A-rank dungeons and 3 quests, building upon 4 B-rank dungeons, 8 C-rank labyrinths, and 10 brutal missions across a grueling road. S-rank status guarantees skyrocketing guild bounties and direct imperial funding for Loki Vigrador, ending financial hardship forever. Lost in ambitious thoughts, he stops when 2 figures emerge ahead and call out to him. An armored veteran and a bespectacled girl greet Loki Vigrador, praising the rare prodigy who achieved S-rank at only 20 years old. Offering smooth thanks, Loki Vigrador listens as the girl gushes with admiration over his feat. She happily notes that most parties fail to conquer even A-rank dungeons. Loki Vigrador is amused. He savors the feeling. Observing their awe, he relishes how S-rank commands total respect, validating the true glory of adventuring. A smug grin curls his lips, finally feeding a deep thirst for public recognition. Faking modesty with a polite smile, Loki Vigrador deflects credit to the outstanding talent of his teammates. Praising good fortune for his comrades in public, he secretly believes they would be utterly helpless without his guidance. Convinced they owe him everything, Loki Vigrador listens intently as the armored man ponders their immense potential. The man suggests his party might join the hero in clearing S-rank dungeons or battling generals of the demon lord. Clapping a firm hand on his shoulder, the man eagerly proposes that Loki Vigrador and his squad could conquer an undead horror unassisted, forcing a dry chuckle. Loki Vigrador promises to attempt such a feat one day. Excusing himself because allies await at the gate, Loki Vigrador takes his leave as the armored warrior apologizes for the delay, exchanging farewells before parting ways. Scoffing at the old fool lost in impossible fantasies, Loki Vigrador mocks the absurd notion of conquering an undead horror. Loki Vigrador ponders the A+ rank, undead horror, a venom-soaked terror taking human, beast, or liquid form that cannot die until its magic ore is crushed. Even the Holy Knights would struggle against its weakest variant, making the shocking speed, bizarre attacks, and catastrophe rating of an undead horror wipe out his team in 5 seconds. Not even a legendary hero could face them alone in battle. Iron gates slam shut as Loki Vigrador seeks his squad. Memories of the undead horror return, a lethal, high-ranking terror native only to an SSS rank abyss like Yggdrasil Labyrinth. A sarcastic scoff escapes Loki Vigrador, confident he will never cross paths with such a beast again. Inside the A-rank dungeon, the Gate of Dream Death, a colossal brute assaults Loki Vigrador, forcing him to call Himeno for aid. Twin blades drawn, Himeno prepares to strike the beast. Charging forward with a shout that all proceeds to plan, Himeno lands a precise slash and summons Suglensti to crush it together. Rushing to her side, Suglensti roars praise as beautiful Himeno strikes true. Crushing force drives Suglensti's strike. Shouting in triumph, he assumes he has won. Angered, Loki Vigrador snaps at him. A razor fang shoots from the monster like a bullet. It tears into Suglensti's shoulder. The beast shrieks ferociously, thickening the air with palpable dread. Arriving with the new healer, Fail casts a black mage spell to aid the squad. Praising Fail's strike, Loki Vigrador steps before the monster. Extending both palms, Loki Vigrador declares he will crush the monster with his barrier. With victory secured, Suglensti gets treated as Loki Vigrador tries to lecture him. Fury flares as Loki Vigrador repeats for the 100th time. That simple slashes fail. Only decapitation works. Scratching his ear, Suglensti calls his leader a boar, brushing it off since they won and enraging Loki Vigrador. If Suglensti refuses to listen, Loki Vigrador questions the point of tactics, just as the brute asks Kanata if she is done. Nervous and unapologetic, Kanata pleads for just a little more time. Pushing his irritation aside, Loki Vigrador orders the crew to advance once Suglinsti mends, refusing to waste breath on petty arguments. The party explores the Gate of Dream Death, an A-rank lair. Recounting its grim past, Loki Vigrador notes 50 miners vanished here 3 years ago in search of rare ores and treasure. Sent to investigate, Gunkino Dongwa took the commission to clear the dungeon. Watching Fail lean over strange flowers, Loki Vigrador wonders what she found. Whispering the name Snowdrop, Fail confirms to a questioning Loki Vigrador that she means the rare magical blossom. Gently touching the petal, Fail notes its two traits: thriving in snowy wastes or blooming wherever magical energy concentrates heavily. Deducing that a colossal fiend must lurk nearby, Loki Vigrador checks with Himeno, who confirms she is almost certain of the threat. Her own blessing of the Holy Sword reacts fiercely, Himeno warns. Throwing up her hands, Himeno questions the A-rank rating, leaving Loki Vigrador mute as Suglensti gasps that a higher-ranked monster must lurk within. Grimly, Loki Vigrador weighs Himeno's blessing of the Holy Sword. This formidable skill heightens all 5 senses, reflexes, and physical prowess, sounding an alarm whenever a superior foe lurks near. Terrified of encountering a beast beyond a rank, Kanata suggests an immediate retreat, yet Loki Vigrador dismisses her plea outright. With boundless bravado, Loki Vigrador insists they will press on. Stunned, Suglensti demands if his leader has lost his mind, grating heavily on Loki Vigrador's frayed nerves. Stepping forward, Loki Vigrador reassures them that their past dungeon triumphs and slain A-rank foes guarantee victory. Approaching the trembling healer, Loki Vigrador praises Kanata as a talented white mage, prompting her to clutch her staff in flustered modesty. With a grim tone, Kanata confesses she ranks only 20th, worlds away from the legendary first-ranked Ray Dean Huel. Shock freezes Loki Vigrador as he mutters Ray Dean Huel's name. Demanding if she means the comrade left in Yggdrasil Labyrinth, Loki Vigrador hears Kanata confirm Ray Dean Huel once served in Gunkino Dongwa. Rage overtakes Loki Vigrador, dumbfounded that the boy he mocked as a useless clown held the top rank among white mages. Clutching her staff, Kanata admits she always admired Ray Dean Huel's tactics. Though Ray Dean Huel rarely cast healing, Kanata explains. His split-second threat analysis and optimal tactics kept the party alive. Tensing up, Loki Vigrador wonders why Ray Dean Huel cast so little healing. Mocking laughter bursts from Suglensti, scoffing that Ray Dean Huel lacked the mana to perform basic magic. Chuckling, the brute claims Ray Dean Huel wanted to heal but lacked power for the simplest spell. A smug smirk graces Loki Vigrador, pleased that a fool like Suglensti just voiced his exact thoughts. Silent and still, Fail offers no words. Quietly, Kanata nods regarding the white mage. Pondering deeply, Kanata reveals that Ray Dean Huel studied endless texts to protect allies without draining mana, forging his own combat doctrine. To her, Ray Dean Huel was an extraordinary, peerless white mage. Clenching his fists in fury, Loki Vigrador cannot fathom why she lavishes praise on that discarded mage. Baffled by her stance, Loki Vigrador listens as Kanata declares no one equals the specialized healing speed of Ray Dean Huel. His art is instant tissue regeneration, able to reattach all 4 limbs in a miracle that shatters normal healing limits. Ordinary white mages merely accelerate natural recovery, Kanata admits, sparking a sharp realization in Loki Vigrador. The tormenting realization dawns on Loki Vigrador. They reached S-rank without fearing lethal wounds only because of that power. Without Ray Dean Huel, they would never have even reached a rank. In truth, they likely would have perished. A heavy silence grips the squad before Loki Vigrador collects himself, claiming everything makes sense. Understanding their silence, Loki Vigrador reflects on how their old doubts about Ray Dean Huel now fit into undeniable truth. Fallen mages echo in his memory, recalling one who warned that healing amidst frontline combat is impossible without absolute focus. Another deceased healer scoffed at their impatience. Stunned, they expected bones to mend in a single second rather than a full hour. A former female healer also warned that white mage spells require deep knowledge of anatomy because treating wounds blindly only makes trauma worse. Dying breaths from their last healer insisted reattaching limbs was impossible, proving to Loki Vigrador how skilled those mages truly were. Indignant over why Ray Dean Huel kept silent, Loki Vigrador notices Himeno freeze in alarm, screaming for everyone to hide. Himeno puts Loki Vigrador on alert. Taking cover, Loki Vigrador asks if the monster is truly formidable. Nodding nervously, Himeno warns that the solitary entity might be the dungeon master. Growing tense, Loki Vigrador questions why a deep-floor dungeon master stalks this upper level, a grim mystery Himeno cannot explain. Her blessing of the Holy Sword screams to flee from what feels like an S-rank monster, leaving Loki Vigrador dumbfounded by the threat. Panicking, Suglensti warns this matches the terrors of Yggdrasil Labyrinth and asks their next move. Stealing his resolve, Loki Vigrador recalls 5 years of growth since Yggdrasil Labyrinth, confident their S-rank status was no accident. Declaring they will fight and win with their newfound newfound strength. Loki Vigrador draws a hearty laugh from Suglensti, pumping his fists in reckless excitement. Suglensti leaves a dismayed Himeno with no choice but to comply. A worried silence falls over Fail as a trembling yet resolute Kanata vows to do her absolute best. Gaze hardening, Loki Vigrador rallies everyone into battle. A sinister humanoid monster emerges. Shock strikes Gunkino Dongwa as they recognize the silhouette. Before them stood the undead horror, greeting the party with mockery. Terror gripped Loki Vigrador, who knew even the legendary hero and a full team could barely survive against such a calamity. The creature toyed with its prey, inquiring why none of them wished to chat. Snapping back to his senses, Loki Vigrador realized this humanoid type gave them a fighting chance. Determined to prove Gunkino Dongwa rivaled the hero, the squad charged forward. Deep in the dark forest, a full moon lit the night sky. Following the trail, Ray Dean Huel heard an unusual sound. Recognizing the foul scent and aura, Ray Dean Huel knew his instincts were correct. This was the most troublesome of the three monster variants. A liquid form emerged and invited him to play, prompting Ray Dean Huel to drop into a combat stance against this deadly undead horror. 2 years earlier, the Black Mage Fail recalled her past. Standing outside the deadly Sss-Rank Yggdrasil Labyrinth in sorrow, Fail thought of Ray Dean Huel. She remembered Ray Dean Huel gifting her a butterfly hairpin that suited her, leaving Fail puzzled by the unexpected present. Flashing a gentle smile, Ray Dean Huel noted it was her birthday, having long wanted to present her with a token of his gratitude. Fail protested that she had done nothing special. Yet Ray Dean Huel insisted that her steadfast help in battle and daily camp chores meant the world. Urged gently by Ray Dean Huel, Fail quietly accepted the token. Clutching the hairpin, she promised to treasure it, though Ray Dean Huel simply dismissed it as a modest gesture. Inside her heart, Fail felt unworthy. Convinced her own weakness allowed her to offer only minimal support. In truth, Fail recognized Ray Dean Huel as the tireless backbone of the party, yet Loki Vigrador routinely dismissed every plea she made on his behalf. Amino sneered that Ray Dean Huel was fit only for scouting and acting as live bait, and Loki Vigrador insisted he labor twice as hard to justify his spot in the ranks. Continuing his mockery, Loki Vigrador labeled Ray Dean Huel the weakest white mage, incapable of symbol healing, deeming him completely useless. So Glensti agreed that he had to compensate for his incompetence, demanding total sacrifice as a member of Gunkino Dongwa. Loki Vigrador demanded he work to total exhaustion just to justify his existence. Crushed by their cruelty, Fail realized her teammates would never value her words or take her arguments seriously. Sinking into silence, she was snapped back to reality by an unfamiliar girl shouting near the entrance. Fail stared at the blonde girl, who remarked on seeing her during a previous visit. Lounging at the Labyrinth gateway with a cheerful smile, Norn noted how frequently Fail returned and asked if she genuinely intended to conquer the depths. Trembling, Fail asked who she was. Scratching her head cheerfully, Norn introduced herself as a beauty who treated the Labyrinth as her personal backyard. Stepping past to request her name, Norn emitted an overwhelming presence. Paralyzed by crushing magic, Fail froze as Norn scolded her for staying silent, warning that daring to enter at her current level guaranteed instant death. Muscling past the pressure, Fail earned praise from Norn, who recognized her unique brand of witchcraft. Curious about her past visit, Norn reminded the silent witch how lethal Yggdrasil Labyrinth was, until Fail confessed that she had no choice but to enter. Desperate, Fail cried that she had to find Ray Dean Huel, leading the girl to ask about the white-haired healer. Stunned, Fail heard Norn ask if she was a friend of Ray Dean Huel, hesitating before admitting she might not be. Tearfully, the Black Mage confessed her doubt that Ray Dean Huel still viewed her as an ally, leaving Norn puzzled. Norn insisted that risking her life to seek Ray Dean Huel proved her genuine devotion. Gripping her staff, Fail lamented that trading her own life could never bring Ray Dean Huel back, but Norn cut in to reject her grief. Widening her eyes in shock, Fail heard the news that Ray Dean Huel survived, desperately asking how such a miracle was possible. Norn confirmed that Ray Dean Huel was thriving and chose to live inside, lifting a crushing weight from the shoulders of Fail, warning that S-rank monsters roamed the entrance. Norn urged her to depart, and a relieved Fail gratefully agreed. Weeping, Fail rejoiced that Ray Dean Huel lived. Dropping her staff to weep with gratitude, she watched Norn smile, remarking that a man with such a devoted friend had a reason to return home. Composing herself, Fail retrieved her staff as Norn confirmed the plan, delivering supplies down to the 1253 floor near the waterfall for Ray Dean Huel to retrieve. Fail clarified the pack belonged to Ray Dean Huel, doubting he would even touch the provisions she prepared. Though confused by her hesitation, Norn agreed to make the delivery. Fail thanked Norn for her aid. Handing a rare soulstone to Fail, Norn explained that the precious labyrinth mineral would fetch a handsome price. Hesitant, Fail asked if she could take it, and Norn confirmed the gift in return for a favor. Norn asked her to look after Ray Dean Huel whenever he returned to the surface, and Fail agreed as she clutched the gem. Expressing gratitude once more, Fail turned away as Norn urged her never to return to this deadly labyrinth. Learning Ray Dean Huel lived brought salvation humiliation, yet Fail knew it could not erase her unforgivable betrayal, a heavy sin she had to shoulder forever. Returning to the brutal clash against the undead horror, Blas shook the exhausted party as Suglensti asked Fail if she had any mana left. Battered by combat, Fail affirmed her power remained, yet the blinding speed of the undead horror denied her any opening for a high-tier spell. A vicious strike slammed into Fail, draining her remaining strength. Hurled backward, Fail left Suglensti staring in horror. Looking up, he met the grin of the monster. A vicious blow hurled Suglensti toward Fail. The monster mocked how fragile the adventurers proved to be. Before the undead horrors stood Loki, Vigrador, and Kanata, trembling in terror as doom closed in. Himeno lunged from behind, shouting her ambush. With a single swipe, the undead horror severed her arm and leg. Himeno lacked even a moment to comprehend the agony inflicted in a split second. The fiend gloated as Loki Vigrador shrieked the name of Himeno. Consumed by sheer terror, Loki Vigrador stared at his shattered party in utter disbelief, unable to accept their collapse. Kanata broke his trance as danger closed in, allowing Loki Vigrador to erect a frantic magical barrier. Shattering the shield, the monster severed his limbs, leaving Kanata paralyzed by the gruesome sight. As Loki Vigrador groaned in agony, Kanata knelt beside him. Screaming in agony, Loki Vigrador demanded immediate healing as the monstrosity stalked closer. Over the fallen pair, the undead horror watched Loki Vigrador beg for time. Seeing the beast could speak, he cried out for mercy. Hysterically, Loki Vigrador pleaded for his life, offering to let the monster slaughter his comrades if only he was spared, making Kanata recoil in disgust. Himeno recoiled at the vile betrayal of Loki Vigrador, drawing a cruel chuckle from the beast. The undead horror hated the whimpering of Loki Vigrador. Losing all restraint, Loki Vigrador grabbed Kanata. Using her as a human shield, he ignored the fiend mocking his frantic screams. Screaming in defiance, Fail unleashed Gigaflame, catching the beast off guard beneath a massive cloud of fire. Stunned by the blast, Kanata watched Fail counterattack with all her might. Fail ordered Kanata to seize this moment to heal the wounded, promising to stall the undead horror. Gasping weakly, Loki Vigrador dropped his head in defeat. Grinning with sadistic delight, the beast stalked toward the witch to savor her screams, giving Fail the chance she needed to buy Kanata time to flee. As the undead horror struck, Fail accepted the blow as rightful penance for her past betrayal. Fail wondered what Ray Dean Huel would feel witnessing their doom, hoping he would relish the death of traitors as monstrous tentacles pierced her flesh and knocked the staff from her grip. Memory drags her back to that fateful day when raw terror overwhelmed her and drove her to abandon Ray Dean Huel, knowing how deeply the world despised witches bearing demonic blood. Certain that society would cast out a witch without mercy, her dread of isolation and mortal terror silenced her tongue, crushing her desire to rescue Ray Dean Huel under sheer selfishness. Accepting this agonizing end as rightful retribution, she willingly surrenders to her fate. Cries echo Fail's name. Her mind seeks Ray Dean Huel. Consciousness returns to Loki Vigrador inside a hospital ward before grim memories rush in. He recalls battling the horrific undead horror. A shriek erupts as he discovers his right arm and left leg severed. Seeing him awake, a woman approaches as Loki Vigrador demands to know who stands before him. Introducing herself as the hospital director, she observes the anesthetic spell taking effect just as Loki Vigrador prepares to make a desperate demand. Loki Vigrador pleads for his severed limbs to be restored, offering vast fortunes and insisting his glorious journey cannot end like this. The director admits she lacks such power, yet knows one master who can. Overjoyed by her words, Loki Vigrador eagerly demands confirmation and burns to hear the miracle worker's name. She names Ray Dean Huel, the comrade Loki Vigrador exiled. Horror grips Loki Vigrador, refusing to accept the harsh reality. He asks if only Ray Dean Huel can heal him, insisting he did nothing wrong. Facing her cold silence, Loki Vigrador screams that he leads the Emperor recognized Gonkino Donghua, shouting that sacrificing party comrades constitutes a grave crime. The director states 5 healers perished over 5 years, crushing Loki Vigrador, pointing out that white mages hold the safest position in any squad. She finds it monstrous that 5 consecutive healers vanished inside Gonkino Donghua. Kanata's official report exposed the truth, revealing how Loki Vigrador used her as a human shield on the brink of defeat. Cutting off his frantic excuses, she details how he abandoned his remaining allies to the monster, leaving Loki Vigrador trembling in terror. Furious that his cowardice ruined everyone, the director shouts directly at him, warning that he will never escape punishment for his atrocities. Loki Vigrador listens in frozen dread. She scoffs that his adventuring career is dead, prompting a confused Loki Vigrador to ask what became of his comrades. The director asks if he truly cares about their fate. Suglensti is comatose, Himeno is blinded with left limbs lost, and Fail is missing, twisting Loki Vigrador's face in pure horror. She brings up Gonkino Donghua, the illustrious team he once boasted about. It is gone. Breaking Loki Vigrador. Stunned disbelief paralyzes him as his entire reality falls apart. Violent clashes and impacts rock the forest. A slimy beast duels Ray Dean Huel. Gripping his blade, Ray Dean Hewell severs the monster's thrashing tentacles. The creature speaks, inviting him to play and have fun. Silent, Ray Dean Hewell analyzes the combat. Gurgling wetly, the monster regenerates its severed limbs. Ray Dean Hewell notes that no matter how often he cuts it, the beast instantly recovers without depleting its endless magical energy. He ponders how many humans and beasts the creature has absorbed. Parrying blows, Ray Dean Hewell calculates. He cannot fathom why such a high-tier monster roams here. Dodging a whip-ass tentacle, Ray Dean Hewell identifies this undead horror as the creature known as the Reader of the Dead. Leaping back, Ray Dean Hewell reasons that this supreme beast normally prowls near the Demon Lord's castle, making its presence here utterly impossible. He realizes it previously unleashed a surge of magical energy deliberately to draw his attention and lure him into an encounter. The realization strikes that this encounter is a calculated test. Someone deployed this beast to test Ray Dean Hewell, pointing to a single undeniable conclusion. The mastermind commanding this undead horror, likely a high-ranking demon, must be watching from the shadows, yet Ray Dean Hewell executes a clean somersault over the monster's strike. Landing smoothly, he decides dragging out the fight will prevent him from locating the hidden watcher. The thought of Liana waiting for him urges him to finish quickly. As the liquid beast roars, Ray Dean Hewell gauges it as an S or S+ tier threat. Unwilling to expose his full power, he still must end it rapidly. A deadly aura wraps Ray Dean Hewell as he goes all out. Bursting forward, Ray Dean Hewell rockets ahead. Dodging strikes, he slices through the appendages of the undead horror. Ray Dean Hewell breaches its center. He spots the core, the weak point of the undead horror. Ripping the core free, Ray Dean Hewell leaves the monster severely crippled, channeling a radiant spear of aura. Ray Dean Hewell prepares to deliver the finishing strike with unwavering confidence. The slimy monster screeches as Ray Dean Hewell charges forward. A crushing strike lands, vanquishing the beast. He instantly springs back. Holding the undead horror's core, Ray Dean Hewell considers crafting a powerful weapon or selling it for gold, but rustling sounds prompt him to look back. Behind the brush, he spots Liana watching. Exhaling in relief, Liana marvels at how he erased the undead horror in an instant. Ray Dean Hewell calls her name as Liana praises his power. Mesmerized, Liana expresses pure awe at how he dodged the lightning-fast tentacles and shattered the monster's core in a single blow. Slightly flustered, Ray Dean Hewell scratches his head and admits he has encountered such monsters multiple times before. Recalling that these horrors inhabit the middle floors of the Yggdrasil Labyrinth, Ray Dean Hewell notes that beasts on the lower floors are far more terrifying, suggesting they settle down now and set off at sunrise. Ray Dean Hewell walks with Liana back toward camp until something strange in the distance catches his attention. Pausing in place, he scans the area. Liana calls out as he lags behind, and Ray Dean Hewell hurries over with an apology. Gazing at the core, an appetizing idea sparks in his mind. Calling Liana over, Ray Dean Hewell asks if she would like to eat delicious sweets once they reach the imperial capital. When Liana admits she loves sweets, Ray Dean Hewell promises to sell the core to fund a holiday feast of delicious desserts at his favorite shop, asking if she likes the plan. A bit shy, Liana ponders the sweets and replies that she would happily join him if he does not mind treating her. Thrilled by her agreement, Ray Dean Hewell looks forward to their outing as Liana gives an awkward nod. Noticing the sunset, Ray Dean Hewell suggests setting up camp right here until Liana calls his name. Turning around expecting monster trouble, Ray Dean Hewell instead hears Liana shouting about a village. With excitement, she declares, finding a village. A huge wall looms ahead. Looking up, Liana asks if this is truly a village, and Ray Dean Hewell confirms it without doubt. Sinking to the grass in relief, Liana gasps out her joy. Ray Dean Hewell checks on her, and she smiles warmly to reassure him that simple exhaustion overcame her, drawing a gentle smile in return, lending a hand to help her rise. Ray Dean Hewell understands her fatigue after trekking since early morning, losing their way and spending hours searching for the right path. Liana marvels at the massive fortress, but Ray explains that divine power infuses these stone walls to shield villagers from deadly monster raids that once wiped out whole settlements. Ray suggests finding the gate, and Liana follows. Halting in their tracks, Ray realizes they have reached the only entrance. Stepping forward, Liana offers to approach the gate and ask the guards to open it for them. Catching her hand, Ray urges her to wait, leaving Liana puzzled before he points to the wall. Explaining that the gate channels divine power to repel magical entities like monsters and demons, Ray reaches out and triggers a fierce blast. With his hand scorched, Ray notes that the barrier rejects humans as well, instantly casting healing. A tense Liana apologizes, admitting she never expected human repulsion, but Ray reassures her that divine gates exist to block demons and monsters, excusing her since it is her first time seeing one. An unfamiliar knight confronts Ray with a drawn blade, watching every movement intently as a sharp aura of danger freezes the traveler in place. Gripping his sword firmly in the shadows, the armored sentry prepares to strike until Liana breaks the tense silence by calling out softly to Ray. Turning toward the pair, the stranger directly asks if they are truly human or harboring something else inside. Standing before the knight with puzzled expressions, Ray and Liana struggle to comprehend the tense confrontation. Detecting a tremendous surge of magical power from them, the warrior suspects they are dangerous demons disguised as ordinary travelers. Known as Atra, this diamond-ranked holy knight serves as the devoted guardian of the sacred divine tree towering over the village gates. Ray notes with surprise that tree guardian Atra is an elderly veteran, defying his expectations of such an elite diamond-ranked protector. Dismissing the compliment with modesty, Atra claims he was merely lucky, insisting he still lacks experience to honor his guardian title. Studying the knight with a doubtful gaze, Ray questions whether sheer luck could ever account for such immense divine strength, because only wielders of true divine power can operate such a gate. The fluid control shown by Atra proves he is no ordinary warrior. Recognizing the misunderstanding, the formidable knight offers a sincere apology to clear the lingering tension and restore trust. Regretting that local eateries are closed, Atra offers fresh water and recommends a cozy inn with a discount to make amends for the scare. Smiling warmly, Liana gives thanks as Ray introduces them both, apologizing for their late arrival and thanking Atra for granting them entry into the village. Hearing that they crossed the perilous forest unscathed shocks the knight, who considers their survival nothing short of a miracle. Noticing their calm composure, Atra feels a pang of embarrassment and quickly shifts away from his casual tone. With grave seriousness, the knight resolves to disclose a grim truth he had kept hidden until now. A dire crisis currently grips the entire settlement, disrupting daily life and threatening the survival of every resident within its walls. Stepping closer to scrutinize the pair, Atra draws a question from Ray, who presses for details about the brewing crisis. A sinister demon has terrorized the settlement for months, sowing relentless devastation and prompting Ray to demand the full scope of the threat. Prompted by Ray about the nature of the beast, Atra explains that this demon is known among the populace as a ferocious werewolf. Month after month, this merciless predator hunts the frightened villagers, trapping everyone in an endless cycle of dread. Ray points out that he and Liana met no beasts on the road, but Atra warns that crossing one means certain death before Ray asks about its combat rank. Ranked at C tier, the ferocious werewolf is dangerous enough that the capital would normally dispatch a squad of holy knights to eliminate it. Deducing that the reinforcement squad was defeated, Ray impresses Atra, who confirms that 4 diamond-ranked knights were dispatched. Despite their elite training and battle experience, every knight was brutally slaughtered by the monster, plunging the villagers into deep despair. Astonished that an entire squad perished, Ray learns from Atra that the soldiers faced 3 werewolves at once, explaining the bloody massacre. Trapped in total isolation, the settlement cannot send for outside help, as food reserves run dry and the siege turns increasingly desperate. Since the 4 holy knights never returned, Atra clings to hope for fresh reinforcements, though his confidence in the village surviving slips away daily. Gripped by anxiety, Liana looks toward Ray in fear, only for the knight to reveal that the situation holds an even darker layer of trouble. Beyond the beasts roaming the perimeter, Atra discloses an equally sinister threat unfolding inside the settlement, compounding their peril. Settlers have begun vanishing without a trace one after another, spreading pure terror throughout the populace and chilling Ray and Liana. The vanishings began alongside the werewolf attacks, yet with zero screams or physical evidence left behind, the village elder concluded they were unrelated. Ray asks whether he shares the village elder's theory, but Atra firmly rejects that view, interpreting the crisis through a much darker lens. Convinced an undercover traitor lurks within their midst, Atra believes this spy leaks vital intelligence to the werewolves and helps orchestrate the abductions. A tall wall in the settlement prominently displays a bright painting of a sword. In this region, Ray previously overpowered Vegan, proving his martial prowess in a decisive clash. Counted among the legendary 4 deadly demons, Alfrixama stands as an ancient creature of immense malice. With the journey far from over, deeper mysteries and harrowing trials continue to unfold before the heroes. Bearing twin ponytails, the little girl is named Liz, accompanied by a dark-haired boy named Shu. Balancing a warm dinner on their palms with utmost care, the children deliver food to Atra, who expresses heartfelt gratitude for their devotion. Shu giggles with innocent warmth, standing right beside Liz as she studies the newcomers with curious wonder. Ray asks whether the children are his own, but Atra calmly explains that he shares no family bloodline with them. Born to the local innkeeper, the 2 children beam with excitement as they approach Ray and Liana to introduce themselves. Stepping closer to inspect the travelers, the young girl asks their names with genuine curiosity, eager to make new friends. Smiling, the travelers introduce themselves in turn. Exchanging warm handshakes built on instant trust, both Liz and Liana find great joy in this pleasant, heartfelt encounter. Bound to his post by sacred duty, Atra explains that he cannot abandon the gate, making the children's meal deliveries vital to his endurance. Grasping the arrangement, Ray commends the children for their faithful devotion in keeping Atra fed during his lonely sentry duty. Radiant smiles spread across their faces as the sincere praise lifts their spirits, filling the young siblings with pride and pure pure joy. Atra instructs Shu and Liz to escort Ray and Liana to the inn, knowing their mother has lacked customers and will welcome new guests. When Liz and Shu ask doubtfully if their mother will welcome visitors, Atra assures them with complete confidence that she will be thrilled. Acting as eager guides, the little ones lead the way to the inn, charming Ray and Liana with their bright hospitality. Sharing a warm smile with the group, Atra reminds Ray that the inn run by the mother of Liz and Shu offers wonderful, cozy hospitality. Highlighting its affordable rates and spacious bath, Atra makes an offer Ray gladly accepts, looking forward to a restful night at the inn. Spacious and well-maintained, the inn grounds feature flourishing greenery that lends the entire property a peaceful, picturesque charm. Beneath the fallen night, a brilliant moon bathes the lodge in serene silver light, filtering through tree branches to create an atmosphere of quiet comfort. Calling out that visitors have arrived, the excited children prompt their bustling mother to prepare a fresh meal and tidy up the rooms. Catching her breath with a welcoming smile, the innkeeper Shinoka introduces herself and invites the travelers inside for a comfortable stay. The siblings chuckle at their flustered mother, and Ray offers a polite apology for arriving unannounced with Liana, which Shinoka warmly brushes aside. Grateful for rare patrons, Shinoka thanks them for staying before expressing utter shock that they reached the village past the roaming demon packs. Ray asks if she means the feared werewolves terrorizing the region, adding that he and Liana were fortunate enough to navigate the entire route without confronting a single beast. Astonished by their luck, Shinoka reveals that several local men tried to seek outside rescue, only to be slaughtered almost instantly in the wild. Possessing an acute sense of smell, these predatory werewolves track prey relentlessly, making the pair's undetected journey an extraordinary stroke of fortune. Reflecting on their journey, Ray ponders their good fortune in slipping past savage demons and werewolves alongside Liana without triggering an ambush. Surrounded by beasts with such sharp senses, the settlement remains trapped, and the thought that the pack already detected Ray and Liana stokes tension. Confident in his own sharp senses, Ray wonders why he smelled no beasts along the trail before Shinoka apologizes for delaying them and leads them to their room. Escorted toward a quiet second-floor room, Ray pauses near the staircase and calls out to Shinoka, seeking crucial answers before they turn in for the night. Determined to grasp the full crisis, Ray asks the innkeeper to recount every recent incident and casualty that has plagued the settlement. Morning arrives quietly as Ray and Liana awaken in their cozy inn room, ready to face the day. Liana reviews everything Shinoka shared the previous evening, piecing together the clues to form an actionable plan. Werewolf sightings began 3 months ago, claiming their first victim when a young woman went hunting past the perimeter and never returned. Discovered outside the Divine Gate, the girl's severed head revealed a horrific truth. The rest of her body had been completely devoured by a ravenous beast. Desperate to defend their homes, the village men banded together into a militia and marched out against the beasts, yet not a single one survived the slaughter. Days later, exactly as Atra recounted, 3 holy knights deployed to hunt the werewolves were wiped out, followed by a search party sent for reinforcements that met the exact same fate. Ray connects the tragedy to the eerie vanishings plaguing the region, noting how an unbroken string of missing persons has kept the helpless villagers frozen in terror and confusion. Liana agrees with Ray, adding that the nightmare truly began during that exact period. 28 villagers vanished without a single clue, and the chilling fact that every single victim was a grown man drove the remaining locals into pure panic. To Liana, none of this makes sense. The Divine Gate shields the entire settlement without a single sign of werewolf breach, yet the men keep disappearing into thin air. With no signs of forced entry, Atra concluded that an undercover spy must be operating right under their noses, funneling aid and targets to enemies beyond the barrier. Because the vanishings started the precise moment the werewolves arrived. Brushing off this deadly sequence of events as mere coincidence is impossible. Liana asks Ray whether an infiltrator lurking among the townsfolk is orchestrating these abductions and feeding vital intelligence directly to their outside foes. Rather than a standard human spy, Ray suspects something far more sinister, an insidious monster capable of shape-shifting into human form to walk undetected among them. Shinoka interrupts their grim discussion by announcing dinner, offering a sheepish apology for intruding on such an important conversation. Savory steam rises from the neatly arranged table, where a lavish, mouth-watering spread invites everyone to sit down and eat. Still turning the grim mystery over in their minds, Ray and Liana step out of the room toward the waiting feast. Aware of the village famine, Ray marvels at the mountain of food on their plates, cautiously asking the innkeeper if such extravagance is wise given their scarce provisions. Shinoka admits food is scarce, yet insists they feast without holding back, since they are the first traveling guests the village has welcomed in months. Expressing heartfelt gratitude for the warm hospitality, Ray and Liana thank the generous innkeeper before Shinoka excuses herself, leaving them alone at the table. Liana urges Ray to dig in and unwind after their exhausting journey. But just as he agrees, an unexpected commotion snags his attention and clouds his expression with confusion. 2 children slip inside. Young Shu stammers an apology for intruding, and little Liz prays praises the amazing aroma as their starving bellies rumble in unison. Troubled by their gaunt state, Ray asks if they ate. Shu and Liz admit they only had a single crust of bread each, explaining that village rules forbid children from eating more. Filled with compassion, Ray and Liana warmly invite the hungry brother and sister to pull up chairs and share the hearty feast with them. Without a second thought, Ray pushes his entire dinner over to the children, bringing radiant smiles of absolute joy and relief to Shu and Liz. Claiming he is not hungry, Ray sets a playful condition before they can dig in, prompting the wide-eyed siblings to ask what task they must perform. His only condition is simple. The siblings must divide every bite fairly and look out for one another as they eat. Beaming with genuine gratitude, Liz and Shu enthusiastically promise to split every morsel down the middle without fighting. Shinoka steps back into the room and scolds her son and daughter in a firm, measured tone, demanding they stop bothering their honored guests. Startled to see her children eating the guests' dinner, Shinoka questions them anxiously, but Ray steps in to assure her that he offered the meal himself. Anxious to compensate for the consumed meal, the innkeeper offers to discount their lodging bill, but Ray respectfully insists on paying the full rate. Shinoka asks if he is certain about the gesture, to which Ray replies that since the plate was prepared for him, he has every right to pass it along. Deeply moved, the innkeeper bows low and offers heartfelt thanks to Ray, apologizing for the intrusion and praising his remarkable generosity. Watching them together, Ray notes how affectionately Atra, the guardian of the divine tree, looks after the innkeeper's children, sharing a tender bond with Shu and Liz. Smiling warmly, Shinoka mentions that her little ones adore playing with Atra and have grown deeply attached to the noble knight. That affection clearly runs both ways, as Ray points out how the children faithfully bring meals to Atra at his post every day to keep his spirits high. Shinoka nods in agreement, yet a flicker of sorrow crosses her eyes as she prepares to reveal a deeper, more heartbreaking truth about the knight. She explains that Atra once had a beloved family in a distant city, and the weight of that distant past continues to shape every step he takes. Bloodthirsty demons slaughtered his entire household, leaving him completely alone in the world with only a single faded photograph to remember them by. Shinoka reveals that Atra had children roughly the same age as Shu and Liz, which explains why he holds such tender affection for the pair. Hearing this, Ray truly understands the crushing grief that weighs on Atra, recognizing how losing everyone he ever loved plunges the knight into deep sorrow. Even after learning of the danger facing his kin, Atra remained at his post, knowing the divine gate would collapse and doom the village if he abandoned his guard. The entire village reveres the stalwart knight, and Ray now understands the heartbreaking reason. Atra dotes so fiercely on the innkeeper's children, carrying unimaginable sorrow in his chest. The grieving warrior honors his sacred duty every single day as the guardian of the divine tree. Soft lamplight warms the quiet hallway, and with the dinner dishes cleared and swept away, a peaceful calm settles over the cozy inn. Thoroughly exhausted from the grueling day, Ray longs to soak in a hot bath and collapse into bed to recharge his spent strength. Securing a private room was essential for Ray, needing a quiet space to decompress in peace. Friction sparks with Liana when they discover the cramped quarters are meant for three, forcing them to share the room with the innkeeper's daughter. Explaining his discomfort to Liana, Ray admits that sharing tight quarters with another girl makes him too self-conscious to get any real rest. Liana volunteers to sleep on the floor so the girl can have the bed, but mentioning the bath abruptly freezes Ray in panic. As a realization strikes him, a tense frown grips Liana as her stern gaze and rigid posture betray the fierce irritation she is desperately struggling to keep inside. Gently inquiring if she has an upset stomach or disliked the meal, Ray hears Liana calmly insist that the dinner was absolutely delicious. Her cold demeanor leaves Ray thoroughly bewildered, unable to fathom what triggered this sudden shift in her usually calm attitude. The awkward truth surfaces. Ray had handed away his own plate, but the extra food the children ate actually belonged to Liana, leaving him mortified. Worried that she might collapse from hunger, Ray checks on her anxiously, though Liana brushes it off by noting she is used to surviving on dried meat rations. A wave of guilt washes over Ray as he realizes his reckless generosity caused Liana discomfort, forcing him to pause and reflect on his blunders. Reassuring Liana that no apology is needed, Ray explains that his unique body rarely experiences hunger, though she questions if that could truly be possible. Ray confirms the truth, recounting how enduring brutal slavery and starvation throughout his childhood warped his physical constitution permanently. Denied proper nourishment and left chronically starving as a boy, Ray gradually adapted to the brutal conditions until hunger became second nature. Back in those dark days, a compassionate girl reached out to save the helpless Ray, becoming his solitary pillar of strength and hope in captivity. Though trapped in bondage herself, she constantly shared her meager scraps with Ray, insisting that a growing boy needed every ounce of strength. She routinely went hungry herself, sacrificing her own health and sustenance just to ensure Ray could survive another brutal day. Liana now understands the deep compassion driving his actions, as Ray explains that he wants to pay forward the kindness that once once saved his life. Looking at him with deep admiration, Liana affirms that Ray possesses a rare and genuine kindness, always looking out for others despite his own hardships. Surprised by her praise, Ray hesitantly asks if she truly means him, to which Liana confidently reaffirms her admiration for his noble character. Liana knows the children will never forget his warmth, admiring the selfless heart that prompted Ray to treat strangers with such boundless care. To her, Ray acted with extraordinary magnanimity, displaying a depth of generosity and empathy that commands absolute respect. Ray notices how Liana constantly obsesses over how others perceive her, bottling up her true personality behind a wall of caution. She constantly studies everyone around her and weighs every word, terrified that speaking her mind might invite harsh judgment or punishment. Whenever she opens her mouth, she goes out of her way to flatter and praise people, an unnatural habit for someone so remarkably young. Observing her guarded habits, Ray recognizes the trauma of slavery, where staying hypervigilant was the only way for a child to stay alive. Ray deduces that she was likely raised under brutal discipline as an elite slave, enduring ruthless trials that forced her to suppress her true self. Behind her polite mask lies a profound emotional wound, walled off behind defensive barriers to shield her fragile heart from further torment. Having buried his own agony for years, Ray understands how desperate people build emotional walls to keep their past from destroying them from within. Though her physical bonds are gone, the psychological shackles of slavery still cling to this 12-year-old child. Determined to see her live without fear or restriction, Ray resolves to shatter the invisible chains that keep her from discovering true freedom. Turning to Liana, Ray calls her name softly, and she immediately focuses her full attention on him. Ray reminds Liana that although they share a formal contract, he does not view himself as her master and will never restrict her personal freedom. Liana stares at Ray in blank astonishment, her eyes clouded with confusion, plainly unable to grasp what he truly means by those words. Gently stroking Liana on the head to soothe her fears, Ray Dean Hewell reassures her that she no longer needs to worry, offering warm comfort and quiet courage. His deepest wish is that the 12-year-old Liana will carve out her own future as a free human rather than a slave, and she listens intently, fully agreeing with Ray Dean Hewell. As long as Ray Dean Hewell remains by Liana's side to support her, he stands ready to shield her against every threat and hardship, guarding her safety and peace. Having eagerly awaited this chance for so long, Ray Dean Hewell finally enjoys his swim in the pool, sinking into the soothing water and casting all his worries aside. Under normal circumstances, the venue would bustle with lively crowds, but the recent terror caused by werewolves has left every local resident paralyzed with fear. A stray foot peeked from behind the bathhouse partition, followed by a soft, startled apology breaking the quiet air as Ray Dean Hewell looked up. Stepping into view, Liana had come to join him for a swim. Raising an eyebrow, Ray Dean Hewell asked why she chose this exact hour, offering the pool to Liana first. Ray Dean Hewell stepped aside, yet she chose to wait and bathe a bit later. Stepping closer to meet his gaze, Liana bowed her head and offered a heartfelt apology, knowing her earlier missteps had caused Ray Dean Hewell trouble. Though she initially struggled to grasp their perilous predicament, Liana resolved to stand beside Ray Dean Hewell, offering him comfort and assistance in the pool. Shaking his head, Ray Dean Hewell assured Liana that no formalities were needed. He never considered himself her master, nor did he demand special servitude. Anxious tears welled as Liana confessed her guilt. Feeling unable to match the profound kindness and constant protection Ray Dean Hewell gave her with equal devotion. Desperate to show her heartfelt gratitude, Liana pleaded with Ray Dean Hewell to accept whatever small assistance she could manage. Hearing the earnest warmth in her voice, Ray Dean Hewell felt the pure honesty behind her plea cut straight to his heart. Having once lived in terror of his own uselessness, Ray Dean Hewell wanted nothing more than to erase Liana's self-doubt and help her stand tall with confidence. Gratefully, Ray Dean Hewell decided that accepting Liana's gentle offer was the kindest choice he could make. Without protest, Ray Dean Hewell allowed Liana to wash his back. A radiant smile lit up Liana's face, brimming with pure delight and relief at his acceptance. Asking if he truly meant it, Liana received a firm nod from Ray Dean Hewell, beaming proudly as she stepped over and promised he could always rely on her. Insisting that mutual care was entirely natural and nothing to be shy about, Liana drew a sheepish reply from Ray Dean Hewell, who maintained he could scrub off the grime himself. Motioning him forward, Liana waited as Ray Dean Hewell grabbed a towel. Gently washing his shoulders, Liana asked if anything hurt, beaming with sheer joy the moment Ray Dean Hewell assured her he felt no pain whatsoever. Her joyful smile masked a lingering subservience that unsettled Ray Dean Hewell, who hated seeing Liana act like a compliant slave rather than an equal. Breaking the silence, Liana voiced her dread, asking if Ray Dean Hewell could truly overcome the lethal werewolves that seemed impossible to defeat. Explaining his tactics, Ray Dean Hewell noted that werewolves posed less danger than yesterday's undead horror, though facing three simultaneously would prove tough. Outmatching the undead horror and even vegan in agility, werewolves could summon a pack if one escaped, yet a deeper dread lingered in Liana's mind. Dark memories memories of the villagers who had vanished without a trace weighed heavily on Liana, a grim mystery that Ray Dean Hewell took just as seriously. Native only to the demon realm far beyond the borders of mankind, such beasts had no reason to prowl human territory. Colossal magical barriers sealed off the demon domain and its demon lord, making any direct incursion into human territory impossible. Patiently breaking down every critical detail, Ray Dean Hewell laid out the strategic facts to ensure Liana grasped the full extent of the threat. Yet the intruders had slipped into the settlement undetected, bypassing the fortified boundary wards that should have barred their advance. How these fiends crossed the perimeter without triggering a single ward remained a baffling mystery to Ray Dean Hewell. Apologizing for souring the mood, Liana bowed her head, though Ray Dean Hewell brushed off her regret despite the rising unease in his gut. Two breeds of fiends walk human lands, those native to the surface and invaders climbing out of labyrinths which explained the werewolf's presence. Recalling legends of a forgotten labyrinth linking both realms, Ray Dean Hewell looked to Liana, who affirmed that such a passage truly existed. 3 years prior, an Sss-Rank party brought back proof of that gateway, though Imperial authorities kept the dungeon's true location secret. With the passage confirmed, Ray Dean Hewell deduced that the terrifying undead horror had used that hidden tunnel to breach the human realm. If that breach stood open, far deadlier abominations might have already slipped through to imperil the entire mortal domain. Expressing his heartfelt gratitude, Ray Dean Hewell commended Liana for providing such vital intelligence. Her expression shifted into a look of quiet wonder, as if an important realization had just struck Liana's thoughts. Eager to finish washing him down, Liana reached for the soap, but Ray Dean Hewell politely declined and handled the rest himself. Moments later, an elderly gentleman approached with a warm expression, offering courteous apologies for interrupting their evening rest. Introducing himself with quiet dignity, the newcomer revealed his identity as village chief Oki Yus. With earnest humility, Oki Yus apologized for disturbing their recovery, explaining that urgent business compelled his visit. Putting the elder at ease, Ray Dean Hewell offered his full assistance and asked if Oki Yus came regarding the recent werewolf incursions. Confirming their fears, the elder explained how bloodthirsty werewolves had laid relentless siege to the village, robbing everyone of peace. Every knight sent to defend the settlement had fallen in combat. Food rations dwindled fast, and terrified villagers found themselves trapped. Though the fortress and Divine Gate held off the beasts, so far, deteriorating conditions meant total ruin was only a matter of time. With grave urgency, Oki Yus pleaded with the travelers to report their plight upon departure and alert the Holy Knights to dispatch a rescue unit. Carrying word of their desperate struggle remained the crucial task if the travelers intended to depart and fulfill the plea of Oki Yus. Reassuring the anxious elder, Ray Dean Hewell gave his word that he understood the gravity of the situation and would act accordingly. Bound for the imperial capital, Ray Dean Hewell promised Oki Yus that he would personally deliver the plea to summon imperial reinforcements and save the residents. Bowing deeply in heartfelt gratitude, Oki Yus hailed the steadfast resolve of Ray Dean Hewell as the village's last surviving beacon of hope. Pausing with a troubled expression, Oki Yus added that one further critical matter demanded their urgent attention to avert the impending catastrophe. Reluctant to rush the weary travelers, Oki Yus explained that an urgent dispatch had just reached him, demanding immediate action without delay. Learning the notice came from Atra, keeper of the Divine Tree. Ray Dean Hewell leaned in and asked for every specific detail. Confirming that the warning originated directly from the respected keeper Atra, the elder dispelled any lingering doubts about its source. Atra advised leaving under cover of darkness tonight, having detected no werewolf signatures roaming the immediate perimeter. Nightly disappearances had swallowed several villagers without a trace, stoking overwhelming terror among those left behind. Having already heard accounts of the vanishings from both Atra and Shinoka, Ray Dean Hewell knew the deadly threat was all too real. Adding to Shinoka's grim assessment, Oki Yus pointed out a chilling pattern. Every single person taken had been an adult male. Why the abductors singled out adult men and left everyone else untouched remained an unsettling, unanswered puzzle. Voice trembling with deep distress, the elder confessed that he could offer no explanation for why men alone fell prey to these vanishings. As a man, Ray Dean Hewell faced mortal danger by lingering even beyond the indiscriminate carnage wrought by the werewolves. Turning to Ray Dean Hewell for direction, Liana asked for a plan, yet the path forward remained uncertain in his mind. 3 prowling werewolves, ongoing vanishings, and sightings of eerie severed hands nearby combined into a suffocating shroud of dread. Apologizing for cutting her rest short with an immediate departure, Ray Dean Hewell met only resolute loyalty, as Liana vowed to follow him anywhere. Sensing unspoken peril, Shinoka cast a tense protective glance toward her children as dark premonitions gripped her. Little Liz looked up with tearful eyes, pleading to know if their departure was truly immediate or if they could stay just a bit longer. Sternly intervening, Shinoka commanded her children to stay locked inside the room and never step outdoors under any circumstances. The little ones had spent all day eagerly waiting to play and laugh with Ray Ray Dean Huel and Leanna, cherishing their brief company. With gentle regret, Ray Dean Huel knelt down and apologized to the kids for cutting their precious time together so short, promising to return soon so they and Leanna could play freely. Ray Dean Huel offered the children a heartfelt vow to ease their sadness. Leanna echoed the promise with a warm smile, reassuring the youngsters that she would visit again to bring them cheer during dark times. Shinoka sharply warned Okiyus not to burden their departing guests with further demands that might scare them off, taking the initiative to clarify the crisis. Ray Dean Huel stepped forward to question Okiyus directly on a critical detail. Gathering their traveling gear, the party prepared to march into the night. Stepping forward with deep remorse, Atra apologized to Ray Dean Huel and Leanna for the sudden turn of events thrusting them into immediate danger. Unshaken by the rush, Ray Dean Huel assured the Guardian that he held no grievances and stood ready for whatever lay ahead. Departing at midnight meant braving roving horrors, yet missing this fleeting window meant remaining trapped in the village forever. Bowing with profound humility, Atra asked for their understanding and forgiveness regarding the harsh burdens forced upon their journey. Waving off the apology, Ray Dean Huel put Atra at ease and asked him to confirm that no werewolf presence lurked nearby. Confident in his heightened senses, Atra reaffirmed that no demonic beast signatures registered anywhere in the surrounding woods. Hearing they had met no beasts on the road, Atra had swept the region with his aura, discovering that the prowling monsters had vanished for reasons unknown. Weighing every detail of the night's explanation, Ray paused for a second before confirming he understood the danger completely. Leaving the village immediately was their best option, since even a single moment of hesitation could bring disaster upon them. Both travelers thanked Atra, and Leanna added her heartfelt gratitude for the warm hospitality and care they received throughout their visit. Atra waved off their praise with an apology, regretting that his last-minute warning forced such a sudden and disruptive departure. Clearing the werewolf territory takes an hour from here, and the knight prays Ray and Leanna navigate the perilous road to the capital safely. Urging them to alert the knights in the capital about the village's crisis immediately, Atra received Ray's firm promise that the message would be delivered without fail. Stepping forward with firm resolve, the companions departed the deserted village into the unknown path, leaving the knight at the gate waving farewell. High on the hilltop, an unknown figure stomped the ground to draw attention, yet the distance kept the departing travelers from spotting his signal. Monstrous werewolves broke from the dark shadows with no barriers left in their way, prowling beneath the bright, ominous glow of the full moon. Grinning with sinister malice, the demons prepared to torment the helpless villagers, eager to relish every drop of agony and terror in the coming slaughter. Ray turned the puzzle over in his mind, analyzing how Vegan could have fallen, and searching for the hidden factors behind that shocking defeat. Spotting Ray from afar, the beasts mistook him for a simple traveler and held back, bound by strict commander orders not to attack without cause. One beast stood frozen in place, scanning the dark perimeter before whispering a low call to beckon his packmates closer. Catching sight of Liana, one beast hungered to strike both travelers immediately, drawn by the girl's immense reserve of magical energy. A cautious demon held his comrades back, warning that Imperial Knights were likely patrolling the region and could arrive at any moment. With newly formed night patrols scouring local towns, an intervention was inevitable, driving the werewolves to brutalize the village before help could arrive. Nighttime kidnappings were abandoned completely, discarded as far too tedious and time-consuming under their shifted priorities. Deaf to mercy or hesitation, one monster prepared to slaughter defenseless children without feeling the slightest remorse. Another fiend hungered to gorge himself completely, eager to devour his prey without leaving a trace. Unleashing sadistic torment upon the defenseless settlement, the fiends sowed unbearable agony, terror, and despair among the peaceful folk, reveling in their dominion over the conquered land. The monsters began a riotous feast of blood and cruelty. Paralyzed by sheer horror and shock, the shattered villagers trembled in total helplessness, unable to escape the nightmare. Dread seized the entire crowd when a brazen fiend laid hands on the village's most revered figure, signaling imminent doom. A bloodthirsty beast targeted Atra, the guardian of the divine tree and the village's pillar of defense, plunging the terrified folk into absolute horror over his fate. Overcome with panic, young maidens bolted into the shadows, scrambling desperately to evade the prowling beasts and find refuge. One girl shrieked a desperate warning for everyone to flee the closing beasts, only for a grinning fiend to snarl that their time had run out. With the divine gate sealed as the sole exit, a towering beast cornered the innkeeper Shinoka, growling that salvation was impossible. Their peaceful home had warped beyond recognition, stripped of every ounce of warmth, safety, and tranquility under the brutal onslaught. Chuckling darkly, the beast mocked them, declaring the locked settlement an inescapable slaughterhouse with no way out. Lashing out in a rapid strike, the fiends ambushed Shinoka off guard, stripping away any chance of resistance and leaving her defenseless. A heavy iron cage loomed near the monster and captives. With a violent jerk, the demon ripped the blade from Shinoka's grip, disarming her completely and crushing her final hope of fighting back. Sneering at Shinoka, the werewolf proved that an ordinary blade, regardless of of its edge could never pierce demonic hide. Salivating over his meal, the beast fixed greedy eyes on Shinoka's innocent children, leaving their mother frozen in horror and powerless to stop him. Desperation gripping her heart, Shinoka screamed for her children to flee at once and find a secure hiding spot from the lethal threat. Pinpointing where the young ones hid, the confident beast flashed a wicked grin, choosing to butcher Shinoka first before devouring her offspring. A crushing blow struck the monster into paralyzed agony as Rei intervened just in time, stepping forward to shield the innkeeper and her children. Rei offered Shinoka a quick apology for the delay, but her relief eclipsed all blame, even as her tense gaze warned that the beast remained close. Untamed mongrels who torment the helpless require a brutal lesson to ensure they never threaten innocent lives again. A ferocious clash erupted between Rei and the snarling beast, where the healer made it unmistakably clear that his patience had reached its limit. Lethal tension filled every second, and when the fiend evaded a direct strike with unnatural finesse, the evasion struck Rei as deeply suspicious. Attempting a treacherous feint to seize the upper hand, the monster paid for his cheap trick with a badly mangled arm. The duel reignited with relentless fury, each fighter pouring every ounce of stamina and raw determination into the clash to secure total victory. Calculating every movement with surgical precision, Rei landed a devastating blow that slammed the beast into the dirt and secured total command. Standing amidst the shattered wreckage of the inn, Rei surveyed the splintered rubble with somber eyes, absorbing the grim reality of the ruins. Splintered tables, shattered glass, and heavy gouges in the floor marked the violent clash that tore through the ruined establishment. Overwhelmed by panic, the wounded monster bolted, confounded by an opponent who bore no Holy Knight crest, yet overpowered him without divine magic. Rei's inhuman speed defied comprehension, shattering the werewolf's defense before the monster could even register the trajectory of the blow. Recognizing the foe's ruthless experience, Rei knew the monster would execute him without hesitation if he let down his guard for even a second. Fleeing for his life, the wounded demon scrambled to reach his captain at the gate and report the terrifying strength of the young warrior. Bleeding and gasping for breath, the battered beast dragged himself before his commander to deliver the critical news that changed everything. Excruciating pain choked the scout's throat, reducing his urgent report to ragged, broken gasps. A strange disturbance cut through the air, forcing the werewolf captain to halt and scan the perimeter with guarded suspicion. An unexpected figure materialized out of the dark before the captain, freezing the beast in stunned anticipation. The commander could not grasp what was happening. Rei held the battered werewolf firmly in his grip. Staring in utter disbelief at the shattered plan, the lead fiend cursed the human accomplice who had lured them into this trap, knowing an escape would wreck their entire mission. Rei focused his assault directly on the demon leader to finish the fight. The werewolf commander's intricate strategy crumbled to dust as the encounter spiraled entirely out of his control. Moving without hesitation in the dark, Rei bound the demon commander in heavy chains to strip away all chance of resistance. No lives were lost thanks to Liana, who swiftly guided the children and villagers through a safe evacuation route. A hidden agenda guided the healer's actions, leaving the bewildered villagers anxious over his true intentions. Unmasking the traitor hiding within the village was crucial to end the threat, and the people survived unharmed thanks to Rei. Sparing the werewolves was intentional, keeping them alive to extract crucial testimony that would unravel the conspiracy. Villagers questioned why Rei spared the fiends when executing them on the spot would have eliminated any further complications. Keeping the beasts alive struck some as unnecessary, assuming the culprit behind the betrayal was already obvious. A similar choice occurred during the battle with Vegan, where Rei spared the demon's life to gain a future strategic advantage. Half measures might offer convenience in the moment, but they frequently breed bitter regret and unforeseen catastrophe. Once more, shadows loomed. A loud voice called out to Rei. Village Chief Okiyu stepped forward, assuring Rei he had suffered no serious harm before asking how the healer anticipated the attack. Regarding the nocturnal beast assault, Rei laid out every detail of how he uncovered the impending raid. Rei urged Okiyu to interrogate the guardian of the divine tree directly, who was feigning death nearby to spy in secret. Stunned disbelief rippled through the crowd, never imagining that their sacred guardian was capable of such covert deceit. Events proceeded as planned, yet betrayal struck. The traitor was unmasked as Atra, shattering the community's trust and plunging everyone into profound shock. No one could fathom that the person revered as the devoted guardian of the divine tree had betrayed everything he swore to defend. Stepping forward in anguish, Shinoka refused to believe Atra conspired with werewolves, insisting he had always guarded their home. Calling the crowd to silence, the elder revealed that before departing, Rei had approached Okiyu with a grave warning about the coming disaster. Forewarned by Rei that the guardian conspired with beasts to open the gates, Okiyu watched from the shadows and witnessed the betrayal firsthand. Atris stands unmasked as the true traitor, shattering the trust of every villager who once hailed him as their divine protector. Furious resentment burns in the Guardian's voice as he snarls directly at Ray, his harsh tone laced with venom, demanding how his betrayal was uncovered. Atra glares in disbelief, but Ray calmly replies that his sharp sense of smell caught the truth. A distinct werewolf stench clung to the Holy Knight, a dead giveaway since no lone Guardian could face such savage beast packs without falling. That undeniable scent exposed Atra's secret pact with the beasts, providing the only logical explanation behind the Guardian's bizarre behavior. Lurking werewolf traces inside the village explain the vanishings, since bypassing the divine gates required Atra's direct complicity as the traitor. Furthermore, Atra repeatedly lied about scouting the borders with divine power, a miracle only the highest saints of the imperial capital could perform. Scoffing with bitter contempt, the Guardian hurls wild accusations at Ray as tensions boil over. Driven by grim desperation, Atra resolves to slaughter every last witness himself, to crush any hope of resistance. When Ray demands why he colluded with monsters, Atra coldly insists his choice was obvious, hinting at a darker motive. Ray deduces that the fallen knight orchestrated this sinister alliance purely for self-preservation, casting all duty aside. To Atra, the werewolves possess overwhelming might, having slaughtered numerous holy knights with terrifying brutality. Such sheer terror drove the Guardian into his dark pact, spotting blatant deceit in Atra's uneasy eyes. Ray presses the fallen Guardian for the exact terms of the demonic deal, intent on uncovering the true motive. Confessing his crimes, Atra reveals he supplied human prey in exchange for his own life, unsealing the divine gates to let the monsters hunt freely. With a grim nod, the Guardian admits that Ray guessed every detail correctly. None of that matters anymore. Snarls escape Atra as he vows to slaughter Ray, along with anyone daring to oppose him, ending everything right here. Killing the hero who subdued the beast commander guarantees Atra a promotion, finally liberating him from this detested post in Rudan. Ray counters that once the village falls, the divine tree loses its purpose, rendering the Guardian's prestigious post entirely meaningless. Curious about his past, Ray asks what drove Atra to become a holy knight, prompting the confused traitor to demand what he means. Undergoing the lethal ritual of divine power means risking instant death to become a holy knight, a harrowing trial Ray asks Atra to confirm. Atra grimly acknowledges the deadly truth. A warrior only wagers his life for immense wealth or to shield someone truly precious, making every sacrifice worthwhile in Ray's eyes. Enduring such agony proves Atra possessed an unbreakable devotion, driven by love for someone dear to his heart. Without hiding his grief, Atra confesses that love drove his ambition. He endured those agonizing trials solely to gain the strength needed to safeguard the family he cherished above all else. Recalling a fateful tragedy from his past, Atra asks if Ray has ever heard the horrific tale that shattered his life. Though Ray understands the knight's heartbreak, he urges Atra to stand down, warning that blind slaughter will never heal his wounds. Atra screams in fury that Ray understands nothing, since his entire world was violently stripped away, without any chance to intervene. No words from Ray can bring his slaughtered kin back from the grave, and without his beloved family, Atra has lost his entire purpose for living. Consumed by boundless wrath, Atra vows to massacre the entire village and burn the whole empire to ash, sparing no one in his vengeance. Clearing away every distraction, Ray focuses his mana with deadly resolve, steeling himself for the inevitable clash. Refusing to relent, Atra unleashes his murderous intent, determined to slay Ray on the spot, unless someone forcefully halts him. Howling with venomous fury, Atra lunges forward, but Ray instantly meets his charge with a fierce counterstrike to defend innocent lives. For years, Atra drew all his strength from his devoted wife. Having cherished his fragile childhood sweetheart for years, Atra enlisted among the Holy Knights specifically to shield her from harm. He believed that enduring the brutal trials would grant him holy authority and immense power to forge a safe future. Swearing a sacred oath, Atra promised to wield his divine gifts only for justice and the defense of those he loved, no matter the personal cost. Atra endured an agonizing ordeal, surviving relentless torment to claim his divine power and rise as a proud holy knight. Blessed with a son and daughter, Atra experienced boundless joy, finding the ultimate purpose for his existence in his young family. Every ounce of his strength was dedicated to safeguarding that peaceful domestic bliss from any looming threat. Yet this idyllic happiness proved short-lived as cruel fate intervened. Imperial orders dispatched the knight to guard the sacred divine tree. His duty bound him to defend the isolated, perilous frontier village of Rudan. Separated from home, Atra suffered bitter agony, unable to watch his children grow up. Though he had joined the Holy Knights to protect his family, rigid imperial service tore him away from their side. Assigned a grueling 10-year deployment, the knight was forced to wait a decade before hoping for a transfer to a major city. During his long isolation in the village, Atra gradually lost touch with his original purpose and the reason for his vast power. Tragedy struck when the city housing Atra's family suffered a savage assault, altering the Holy Knight's destiny forever. Later reports revealed that only 2 Diamond Holy Knights knights, and half the citizens survived the raid. But Atra's family had perished in the slaughter. The devastating news felt nightmarish, yet Atra had to confront the crushing, bitter reality that his loved ones were gone forever. Uncovering the horrific truth behind that defense mission shattered Atra's faith in his sacred duty. Imperial authorities treated the town as a live training ground, deploying raw recruits against monsters instead of seasoned holy knights. Where did this madness begin? Out of 4 holy knights deployed to purge the werewolves, merely 2 survived. Unaware of his loss, the 2 survivors bragged to Atra that they only survived by fleeing early, claiming that cowardice mattered more than martial valor. One knight brazenly declared his own life took priority over commoners during training drills, an abhorrent view his partner gladly echoed. Hearing their shameless confession, Atra realized with bitter cynicism that raw survival eclipsed any notion of heroic sacrifice. Yet Atra had bled through brutal battles and risked death daily for one purpose alone: to keep his beloved family safe. Corroded by grief and shattered hopes, the Guardian felt his fractured soul collapse under the suffocating weight of despair. During that fateful cull, Atra deliberately abandoned 2 holy knights to be torn apart by the werewolves. As for the 2 cowards who fled the city, Atra slaughtered them with his own blade. Even the werewolves questioned why the Guardian slew his fellow knights, but Atra coldly declared that the cowards were never his comrades. They were despised enemies the moment they abandoned his family. Through a familiar, the werewolf supreme leader Alfric established direct contact with the vengeful Atra, relishing the fallen Guardian's thirst for bloody chaos. The demon Lord Alfric offered Atra a sinister alliance to bring total ruin upon the Empire. Joining hands with Alfric, Atra enacted a scheme to erase the village. Under cover of darkness, Atra ushered werewolves past the gates, allowing them to silently abduct villagers without raising alarm. By picking off the population 1 soul at a time, the settlement would inevitably wither and vanish from the map. Absorbing the horrific revelation in grim silence, Ray struggles to process the full magnitude of the tragedy. This brutal scheme was designed to break his binding curse as the Divine Tree's guardian. Yet with every abducted victim, agonizing remorse gnawed at Atra's conscience, plunging his fractured psyche into bottomless torment. Echoes of Alfric's insidious voice continued to ring in Atra's mind. Blinded by mounting madness, the Guardian lost all self-control, no longer able to comprehend the monstrous path he walked or why he continued. Yearning for sweet oblivion, Atra seeks to end the endless nightmare once and for all to find elusive peace. Even if he purges the village to win freedom, a haunting doubt torments Atra. What will remain of his humanity after so much slaughter? Desperate for clarity, the broken knight implores Ray for an answer, wondering what purpose his endless suffering ever served. Hardening his heart anew, Atra casts doubt aside, knowing his family remains dead and retreat is no longer an option. A decisive duel begins between Ray and Atra, testing their convictions in a clash that will redefine their bond. Liana urges the crowd to stay back, warning that the chaotic battlefield outside poses far too great a danger. Standing beside Liana, young Shu and Liz watch the unfolding clash with breathless, anxious gaze. Leading the villagers to a safe vantage point outside town, Liana keeps everyone clear of the immediate threat. Locked in mortal combat, Ray and Atra trade ferocious strikes, each warrior determined to fight to the end. Focusing his senses through the chaos, Ray searches for an opening against the Guardian, whose frenzied fury escalates with every passing minute. Tracking his opponent's balance with precision, Atra coils his frame to deliver a crushing kick. Surging forward in a blur, Atra sweeps Ray off his feet with brutal force, shattering his balance before he can mount a counterattack. Refusing to stay down, Ray gathers his inner resolve to turn the tide in this grueling, brutal showdown. Pushed to their physical limits, the 2 combatants refuse to yield an inch of ground as the battle grows fiercer. Flawless martial mastery blends with surging magical energy, proving Atra's combat prowess surpasses any warrior Ray has ever faced. Ray reels under the monstrous blow. Holding the elite rank of Diamond Holy Knight, Atra demonstrates exceptional combat mastery and lethal standing among warriors. Though officially listed as a Diamond Holy Knight, Atra wields divine power rivaling a Ruby Knight, elevating his overall strength to Class A and beyond. Divine energy draws its immense power directly from human emotion, fueled in Atra by an enduring, unyielding love for his lost family. Atra demands to know why Ray hesitates. Consumed by agonizing despair and grief, Atra begs Ray to cut him down so his endless suffering can reach a final conclusion. Gathered at the edge of the square, terrified villagers look on as young Liz weeps with unstoppable, bitter sorrow. Shifting his stance with quiet caution, Atra points his blade outward, preparing for an unpredictable strike. Whispering an arcane incantation under his breath, Atra gathers potent mana with steady, focused determination. Driven to extremes, Atra resolves to reduce the entire area to smoldering ash. Dark power twists Atra's aura before their eyes, cloaking his body in terrifying, malevolent shadows. Roaring flames erupt across the earth, racing outward to swallow everything in their path. Infuriated that Ray refuses to fight to kill, Atra turns his blazing wrath toward the defenseless villagers. Fueled by dark mana, the roaring inferno blazes even higher, casting ominous shadows across the scorched landscape. Spotting the expanding inferno, Liana rushes toward Rei in distress, her eyes wide with shock and deep alarm. Unshaken by Liana's fiercest assault, Atra withstands the full force of her strike without receiving a single scratch. Dense magical energy gathers across the square, charging the atmosphere for a catastrophic explosion. Drawing upon her utmost focus, Liana unleashes liberation to shatter the enemy's oppressive momentum. Bitterly noting that Rei passed up the perfect chance to kill him, Atra questions why the healer refuses to strike, leaving Rei baffled by his death wish. Wielding such devastating strength, Atra had no reason to conspire with werewolves if his true intention was simply to destroy the village on his own. Grimly resolved on death, Atra repeats his demand with dark conviction, pleading for Rei's blade to grant him eternal peace. Rei remains deeply conflicted, searching for the right path forward. Refusing to abandon the fallen knight, Rei attempts to reason with him, yet Atra presses forward with relentless, stubborn fury. Rei warns that burning everything in blind wrath will reduce Atra's most precious memories to forgotten ash, urging him not to destroy his own past, imploring Atra to recall the beloved faces and voices of his lost family. Rei is cut short by a furious roar as the guardian commands him to be silent. Trapped by unendurable grief, Atra believes his unresolved agony must burn away entirely, destroying everything to free his soul from endless torment. Locked in a relentless battle against the furious guardian, Rei calls out to Liana so they can combine their strengths and alter the course of battle. Surrounded by a horde of ravenous beasts closing in on all sides, Liana stands resolute, ready to defend the innocent to her absolute last breath. Shinoka watches in frantic terror for her children, paralyzed by anxiety and unable to grasp why such catastrophic violence has engulfed their village. Shock grips Rei as the werewolf regenerates its severed limbs, mutating into an abnormal beast with power far beyond the limits of ordinary monsters. Dodging the odds, the mutated werewolf prepares to flee the village. Drawn away from the divine gate by Atra's fierce assault, Rei realizes the beast will escape with the children unless he breaks free immediately. Facing Atra with grave sincerity, Rei reminds the guardian that even amid total ruin, someone dear to him may still be alive and waiting for rescue. Touching the guardian's deepest buried memories of the children, Rei's sincere words shatter Atra's composure and spark agonizing doubts within him. Echoing across the decisive moment, a cherished voice from the past rings clear inside Atra's troubled mind, restoring forgotten purpose. Haunted by memories of the fallen villagers, Atra acknowledges that beyond his own family, he truly cherished the precious smiles of the people he failed. Recognizing the impending threat to the innocent, Atra resolves to shield Shu and Liz from the werewolves, prepared to lay down his life. Bewilderment strikes the werewolf as Atra aims his spear away from Rei toward a completely unexpected target. Driving his spear into the divine gate, Atra activates its sacred barrier, cutting off the werewolf as the beast attempts to abduct the children. Radiant light floods from the divine gate, illuminating the battlefield in a brilliant, pure glow. Seizing on the beast's hesitation, Atra lunges at the werewolf. Demonstrating supreme martial skill, Atra slays the vicious werewolf in combat. Exhaling in exhaustion after the brutal fight, Atra is embraced by Shu and Liz as they cling to the guardian in heartfelt gratitude. Overwhelmed by lingering fear, little Liz weeps in relief. Yet Atra insists he did nothing deserving of the children's heartfelt praise, admitting his mistake in putting the children in danger. Rei acknowledges that without the activated gate, neither of them could have saved Shu and Liz. Extending his hand to Rei in mutual understanding, Atra discovers the peace and purpose that had eluded his tormented heart for so long. Closing his eyes in quiet reflection, Atra holds the cherished memory of his family close to his heart, honoring their legacy. Looking across the square, Atra beholds the joyful smiles of Shinoka, her children, and the rescued villagers living in safety. Atra firmly confirms he has finally found the answer to his long-standing agonizing question. Exchanging a warm handshake and sincere smiles, Rei and Atra seal their mutual respect as Rei accepts his defeat with quiet dignity.